Ulonga tabati yada to ye kuma daifa. Inu to ye ko je love bipa. Oba tala, oba takutakun. Zongo Esu Ogun Oya Osun. Kini ṣẹ̀ṣe tán ṣe nílé yìí o. Ó jẹ́ lọ́jà.
Alafia, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Welcome to another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Orisha Bami, and we are back today with another phenomenal guest for another phenomenal show, man. So I'm looking forward to doing this thing and making it do what it do. So without further ado, peace and blessings, Aboro Boye, Abo Shishe, Baba Khepra PTAH. What's good with you, man? How you doing, Baba?
Aboro Boye, Abo Shishe, Abo Ato Sorry Warrior Phone. I'm doing well, Baba. I'm just chilling and marinating and getting ready to come on in.
Oh yeah, listen, I already know. I knew before the first one it was gonna be one of them ones. And boy, I'd be damned if it was definitely that and then some.
Ashe.
Yeah. Yes, sir. So I'm ready. Yes, sir. So I'm ready to get this thing cracking, man. So before we dive deep and before we have a liftoff, I want to give a shout out to like all the new subscribers, all the new community members, all the new people, who's been exposed to the channel, who've been showing a lot of love and support, man. I definitely appreciate each and every single one of y'all. Shout out to you, all of our past guests, all of our past, elders, everybody who's contributed to this African spirituality experience. Just over a year old, man. Our very first show went up on April 8th, 2024. And we're just over, a year old. And, man, we're hitting some milestones, So I couldn't be more humbled, but more proud and also more grateful, because a lot of the things that have happened, it happened organically. It wasn't anything that, I pushed the narrative or anything like that. But just the fact of how the community's kind of grown organically, and it's been nothing but love, support, camaraderie, and in unity, man. So it's like that within itself shows me the power of not just the ancestors, but the power of the deities, the gods, the goddesses, and the universal prime creator, the cosmic creator. And so with that, man, you and I have a very similar path in regards to our upbringing spiritually. You definitely have, I know, maybe a little bit of time over me in regards to how long you've been on the planet and doing this work. However, I definitely see the alignment is definitely divine because our paths are very similar in a lot of different aspects, man. It's just that, you have a few, years over me in regards to what you've seen, what you've experienced, in your path and your journey. But with that, there's so many other people who are just starting their journey, just starting their path, just getting into a lot of these things that we're speaking about. And I remember when I first started, you know what I mean? So it's like to have someone like you who I could chop it up with, who I would consider to be ambidextrous when it comes to two of the most prolific spiritual practices that I know of, which is the Ifa, Isheshe tradition, as well as the Kemetic, metaphysics spaces. So with that, I want to kind of just dive in, man, and get right to it. So buckle up, Buttercup, because we about to get ready to start this elevation on this frequency and this this track through the interdimensional travels of the multiverse. So, Baba, your very first interdimensional travel. Can you remember when that was? Can you recall it? Can you feel, how that experience was, your very first one?
I say I got glimpses when I was a child. Okay. And the first time I remember I was a child and I'm bouncing off the ceiling like a balloon. And you remember the old school ceilings when they used to have like we kind of look like the styrofoam paint on the top of the ceiling with the glitter in it. So I remember I was pushing up off of it and bouncing off of it, and I couldn't turn around, but because I was like a balloon. And as a child, nobody was explaining to me what was going on. I didn't know what was going on. So I got back in my body and I'm scared. I don't know what to tell my mom or nothing that, hey, I'm bouncing off the ceiling and everything else. But this was the first clue that there is something more to us than just this physical third dimensional body in which we all traverse, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll say my most profound experience was when I first moved into this apartment in which I'm in now, okay? When I first moved in here, right? Shortly after I got initiated into Ifa, and I think I brought this up before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what it is that I was in my sleeping bag. I didn't have no furniture or nothing. I was in my sleeping bag, right? And I decided I was gonna get up and fix me some spicy orange tea. So I go into the kitchen, about to make the tea. Something's off. It didn't feel right. Next thing you know, I'm back in my sleeping bag. I'm like, huh, what's going on? Wow, okay. I get up and go into my kitchen again. Something still seems off. Find myself back in my sleeping bag. Okay, on the floor. This happened about at least 7 times. The last time it took place, I decided I was going to do something different, and I went downstairs instead, right? And I didn't find myself back in my sleeping bag. So I talked to a friend of mine, and he had talked about he had several similar experiences. And that is, we came to the conclusion then that we were shifting reality some kind of way. Now, I spoke to seers and everything else. One person had told me, well, maybe a part of you didn't want to come back, so you was going to different realms, but you weren't returning back to Earth. Whatever was happening, it was very profound. It was very odd. And I felt like I was being shown by Rumula at that point in time that we live in a multi-dimensional universe.
Ashe.
So you might say throughout my whole life, I've been having glimpses of the fact that we're in a multi-dimensional universe, even with different timelines and everything else, and that we exist in the past, present, and future at the same time. The time in which we've become accustomed to, that's illusion. We've agreed to it because of our programming in the West and everything else, because they live by it. But if you notice, a lot of us, you know, with these time standards that you got, a lot of times it just throws us completely off. And I'm not saying don't, you know, if you got work, you got to feed your kids and everything else, then by all means be on time. You know, but the way they do it here is not really natural for us. You see what I mean? What I mean?
Yeah, no, you good. Nah, that's real. I definitely, I get where you're going, and I know where you're coming from, because when you talk about that, right? When we're talking about traveling, or we're talking about realities, we're talking about the existence, especially when you mention a historical figure like a Rumula, right? Me personally, I remember the very first time when I should say astral projected, right? I'll never forget it. It was in my old home. I don't know how old. I might have been like in my early 30s, but I just remember I was meditating, and I was in a real good meditation, and I don't know how long I was in it, but I recall a certain instance where it was like a space shuttle or like a rocket just took off. I was like, shoo! Like my, you know what I'm saying? I feel like that was the first time I ever accessed or entered the Merkaba. You know what I mean? Like the ability to be able to, you know, astral travel, astral project within my auric body, my etheric body, or my, you know, my spiritual body, whatever you want to call it. But I just recall when it happened, I was moving through space so fast. It was profound, but it was beautiful. Like, it was an amazing experience. And I'll never forget how, like, just how impressed I was with the experience. Like, yo, that was dope. Like, it was really reminded me of the movie Superman, when he's flying through the sky coming from Krypton or wherever, you know what I mean? And he's like, shoo, and he's moving, because it was almost identical experience, just like that. And I don't even remember if I was like actually in a body or a craft or, you know, none of that, but I remember the whole experience, and it was amazing. So it's like, that was my first time. This was before I knew anything about Ifa, Isheshe, you know, or Rumula, or any of that. I was studying metaphysics and Kemetic spaces, but I had never experienced anything like that. So it sounds like you had yours a lot long before I had mine, because mine was in my early 30s. So you said you had yours as your childhood experiences, right?
Yes. It used to scare me all the time, because, like I said, I didn't know what was going on. My mother used to take me to church. She was trying to figure out what's going on. And, you know, one day the lady, I guess I don't know if it was at a Pentecostal church or maybe a Baptist church, but she recognized something in me, and she said, "Come here, young man," and had me walk up in front of the whole congregation and said, "You gonna be a preacher when you grow up." I said, "Oh, okay." I didn't know what she was talking about at the time, you know. So I got in the car, my mom and my stepdad said, "You're gonna be a preacher, huh?" And I guess so. You know, so when my Baba first gave me a reading and said that, "Hey, you almost Shango," he said you could either be a preacher or a pimp. I guess I chose preacher. So, you know.
Listen, look, you bring me back to my Malcolm X presentations, man. Listen, when he was Detroit Red, he was out there. Hey. But nah, my bad. I didn't mean to interrupt. But yeah, so you said either a preacher or a pimp. That's where you was going.
Indeed. So I decided, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and fulfill what the lady told me when I was a little kid, when I was a child, so on. And plus I had this desire to just share with people, so the way I would preach, I teach. That's the way I felt, I share with people. But hey, I was also, down to learn. So I went around just exchanging information with all kind of people. I met like gurus from India, Reiki masters. In fact, maybe when I was like 19 years old, that's when I got my first Reiki attunement. So when I was 21 years old, I had all 3 attunements. And I think I thought I was the first in Seattle to have all 3 Reiki attunements, but then I found out there was an older brother by the name of Brian, who was a yoga instructor. So I guess he beat me to it. But hey, I was the first, person that I know that looked like me, on my block that had it, at least, and I was trying to hit more and more sisters and brothers to it, how they can activate this energy and heal themselves on a multi-cellular level. So I kept on having revelation after revelation. Sometimes it'll come in the form of a dream state. Sometimes I'd be laying in the bed and I start having downloads, and information would just pour into my conscious mind. And later on, I discovered that if you're getting downloads, when you start moving, that's when you start losing that connection and you start forgetting when you start moving. So if you can refrain from using an alarm clock, and if you're susceptible, you do your meditations and spiritual practices 9 times out of 10, you probably be getting downloads sometime early in the morning and information start coming to you. So what you want to do is you want to relax and make sure you got a pen and pad next to you so you can write it down. Okay? Because throughout the day, you're going to start forgetting. Remember, the average dream that everybody has is only like 3 minutes long. But it seems like sometimes dreams can seem like a whole week, right? Because time is an illusion when it comes to the spiritual realm. Here, it means something. Because, you're under this schedule, this concept that I call fortified time and linear time and so on. But in the grand scheme of things, spirit is not limited to time and space. It can travel in the future, it can travel in the past. And that's why when people sit in seances and so on, they can get messages of possible futures. But here's the thing. You see, why would you be warned about something if you can't change it? You see? So that means it's not necessarily a prediction of an absolute future, but showing you one of the timelines that your awareness can go on that you may not find desirable if you do not do what is necessary to either soften that situation or avoid that situation. Or you may be shown the possibility of something that you can receive, but if you do not act quick enough, you will miss out on it. You see? Same thing that goes for Ifa. Same thing that goes for any other form of divination, or when you're doing spiritism or spiritualism, when you're sitting in front of your altar and your shrines and your spirits start delivering messages to you, the same thing that goes with the downloads. So before I joined the military, something had came to me about algorithms. I didn't know what an algorithm was, but it was downloaded into my mind that I might want to learn about algorithms. And I'm seeing how people have also been caught in another layer to enslave their minds in the form of algorithms, because people can stay stuck in those algorithms. And that means that they're not moving. That means they're only listening to the paradigm that they've agreed to, but you're supposed to grow and expand, learn in that current paradigm. But if you're trying to master self and escape being imprisoned by the matrix, then you're going to want to grow and expand, not get stuck in a paradigm just because people in that particular paradigm or in that group are bounded by what I call popular opinion. And it was popular opinion that's used by the media and propaganda to keep you in a certain way of thinking that would not allow you to grow. Hence, Negro, never grow, and keeping you on your knees. So if we want to move beyond that, we have to allow our minds to expand. And this is the concept of tapping into that higher level of consciousness. We have Ori, we have Oriendu, in which you access through the belly button, and you have Iponri, which is the aspect of you that resides in heaven. What you are is you are a projection. This is your avatar. Avatar comes from a Hindu word, a Sanskrit word, in which whenever there was a person who was an embodiment of a god, they were called an avatar. Well, you are the embodiment of divine will as well. So you yourself are an avatar.
Ashe.
Ashe?
I love that. Listen, I didn't want to interrupt, but I need you to, if you don't mind, man, we could just bust a quick UE real quick and hit that Negro acronym again. Can you hit kind of, because I know I heard it,
Uh,
but I know it might be some people that might didn't hear it. I don't know, but I feel like that needs, if you don't mind, we can just get like one more quick encore of what you said when you said Negro.
Negro. Negro. So you're on your knees. You're constantly on your knees. You're not really growing and never grow. A Negro will never grow. They'll always stay in that same position, depending on somebody else to think for them and do for them, you see. So when you go beyond being a Negro, that means that you're in a stage of self-actualization. That's when you become your divine self. That new being, that Nubian, that golden one. Ancient Kemetic word for gold is Nub. So each and every one of us can be golden beings. We can reach what is called immortality when you remember, that is, bring back the scattered pieces of who you are back together into oneness. You see what I mean? So there's a you in the past, there's a you in the present, there's a you in the future. You can integrate that consciousness at times when you can feel like you're one and connected. There's a you in all the various timelines. Each and every one of yourselves are doing different things. However, reason why I talked about Esu and the concept of interdimensional travel, from what I can see, he can shift your consciousness to the various aspects of you that is doing the things that you desire to see yourself doing. Ashe. Yes, the sister alien black girl, she made a genius comment. You got to reprogram and reshape your algorithm. True. And that's the thing. The beauty about this dimension in which we live in, it does work a lot like a simulation. In fact, I'll go as far as say that it is the divine simulation, or it could be the devil's simulation, however you want to work it, however you want to do it. The fact of the matter is that Ifa, as well as Mary de Lagoon, they got old dudes in there that says that your tongue can either make you or break you. So you got to be careful what you say and how you say it. Ika Meji, that's the old dude that talks about words of power. Notice how Ika sounds a lot like Heka. Heka, which is divine magic, which Heka means spirit power, right? So if you want to change your reality, you got to also change the way you think and change the words that come out your mouth, because the words that you come out your mouth, it goes hand in hand. What you're saying the most to yourself and out loud is shaping your consciousness and shaping the way you think, shaping the way you see things. So there's a such thing as called somnambulistic trance, when you go into hypnosis, and therefore, you know, you can reach certain levels. There's hallucinations that each and every one of us experience where we're not in alignment, right? So there's a form of what we call positive hallucinations, when you're seeing things that are not there, and there's negative hallucinations when you don't see the things that are right in front of you, right? And a lot of times, if you've been programmed to see things a certain way, there's going to be minor things that you're going to miss because your brain has been programmed to not see them as important. See? Or let's say if you've been programmed to believe that these things do not exist. Well, let's say if your brain is telling you that you're not supposed to see something, right? A person without any clothes on can walk down the street and people will not notice because their brains is telling them that that's not supposed to happen. So they may not notice it. Their brain may literally edit it out. I've had times when I've had to like tell myself to look closer and sit down and breathe because I was looking for my keys and my keys were right in front of me, but for whatever reason, my inner Esu was playing tricks on me, or my brain was not paying attention or noticing, or maybe my Ejiogbe had hit the keys. So what I say is universal mind. Make it so that I will find my keys. Make it so that I can't help but find them. Make it so that I cannot help but see them. You see, you don't have eyes because you see. I mean, you have eyes because you see. You see what I mean? Not the other way around. So we're perceiving reality. We're also having to shape and create our reality. And that's what that first Hermetic principle meant by the all is mind and universe is mental. So warning, I'm not here to give anybody any type of religion or dogma. I'm here to open people's minds, help them open their minds and say it's okay to think outside the box. Get outside the box, the matrix, right? And more and more people are beginning to have out-of-body experiences, as well as meet beings from other realms, other planes of existence. This includes Orishas, this includes Loas, ancestors, angels, ascended masters, and so on. At times, people meet ancient deities from Kemet like Tahuti and Anubis or Anpu, and people are also learning more and more about healing modalities, just as Reiki, pranic healing, and so on. So it just goes on and on and on and on. More and more discussions are taking place concerning parallel realities and timelines, and is beginning to reach more and more, right, mainstream science are beginning to take a look at that. You've had people like Neil deGrasse Tyson, right? And even him, what's his name? Kiku. I gotta get his name. I think Machio Kikau. I'm messing his name up, but I heard him speak a few times. Asian, and he be dropping bombs about the multiverse, about the universes in which we live, right? So yes, Hecka also was a person that gave the gods power. The person Hecka was. Indeed. You know, in fact, one of the poses they have for Hecka, as they show Hecka on their knees, drawing up the what we call the Ka. Now, when you're in church, when you're back in church and everything else, you were subconsciously calling on that energy by raising up that Ka sign. The Ka means that which is on high. It is your double. So you have a Ka. There's a Ka self. There's your double self in the other plane. We have realms that seem to go beyond the perception of our five senses. Got spirits, ghosts, UFOs, UAPs, and other entities that can move in and out of our range of perception. Now, the first of the most commonly known in the Hermetic principles that I mentioned earlier was we're talking about the all is mind, the universe is mental. The collective mind is creating all around us too. So your mind is creating your reality. Now, let's look at that word mind, right? The word mind, it comes from an old English word meaning memory or remembrance. Remember when Osir got cut up and broken into 14 pieces and scattered? That was his members being scattered. So to remember was to bring back the pieces of Sar back into oneness, right? And was the same thing that the broken up pieces of Obatala, the same thing as far as the broken up pieces of what they call the shattered calabash. It talks about one who does not do well on earth, right? They're not doing what they're supposed to do. When they die, they enter what they call bad heaven or heaven of potty. Right, and they're talking about the having of pot shards because it's talking about a fragmentation of self, a fragmentation of consciousness. So the thing about it, here's the thing. It's not that you're not focused. What it is that your focus is all over the place. What you want to do is you want to bring your focus into oneness. You see what I mean? Because they done told you that people are only using 2% of their brain capacity. What it is that you're so powerful that you hypnotize yourself into believing that's all you're using. So understand this. To learn is to remember. So with the highest aspect of your being, what you think you're learning, your higher self or your highest aspect of you already knows. It's already tapped in. So your being, you know. The Sanskrit word for man means mind, and it's linked to the word manas, also according to the Indian Vedic teachings. The progenitor of all humanity is called Manu. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you know, my father had been in the Nation of Islam at one point, right? At one point. But I also decided I was going to follow in some of his footsteps as well. So I learned some of the wisdom of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the first 1 through 10 is called your student enrollment. So the first question is, who is the original man, right? And the answer is, the original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner of the cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, and God of the universe. Now bear with me now, okay? The universe is the one song, the one phrase, right? Also meaning one turn or turn into one. So you have a multiverse, that means you have many different terms, and you're not talking about linear cycles here, okay? So the multiverse means that there are multiple aspects of you when everything phases in, phases out, and so on. The Asiatic black man, the maker, owner, cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, and God of the universe. Remember, they talk about Allah emerging from triple stages of darkness, but that's the womb, though. That's the dark womb of the great mother. Matter, matter. So we all got to come into matter and come into physical form to experience the sensations of what it's like to live. Hence, we're called life forms. So it's important to know, too, that the universe we live in is not solid. We are not solid, but somehow we're held together with 14,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. So it's mind and consciousness holding all of this together. Now, let's look at that word Asiatic a little bit, right? Because, you know, of course, there has been competition between two schools of thought. Those who want to focus on Africa and those who want to say, hey, we're the Asiatics. So I like to see where things all connect because we live in a holographic universe where every part contains a whole. So what appears to be separate and scattered is still related and is interrelated. So we look at the word Asiatic indicating to be of Asia. Some believe that it's linked to the ancient Akkadian word asu, meaning to go out, to rise like the sun. So in this case, the meaning of the latter can be transcending geography. So Asia can be said to represent the land of sunrise. So to be clear, Islam teaches that the Holy Land is Mecca. And now the school of thought in which I'm from is very African-centered. However, there's spiritual aspects that identify Africa as well with the sun. So I like to say Afrika, meaning the flesh and the spirit of Ra. Now, why do I say all that? In the tradition of Ifa, the Babalawo has what is called the Opantre. The Opantre is used for divination, as well as marking and tapping into the power of the dark matter, dark mother, called Odu. On the right side of the tray is Ejiogbe, where the sun rises, and on the left is Oyekumeji, where the sun sets. And above you have Iwori Meji, which is the eyes. That's where Esu drives. There you go. That's the Opantre. So at the top of the tray, you have Esu, right? You know, the element of wind. Then you got the element of water, Edi, right? Which is at the bottom, which is the womb. Or so you have that masculine and feminine principle. Now, a lot of people say that the Opantre is the feminine principle. And we have this, it's called the Aroke. That's the masculine principle. So a Babalawo is always going to tap into the divine masculine and feminine energy when he's summoning the universal energies of Odu, which are female themselves. So it's always dealing with the yin and yang principle and basically the marriage of the mother and father principle. So it's talking about honoring your mother and father so that your days will be long upon this earth. When you call upon your ancestors, you don't just call upon your mother's ancestors, but you call upon your father's ancestors. However, when it comes to doing certain rituals, we ask for your mother's name because she has the womb that was the portal that brought you here. And that's why we ask for your mother's name when it comes to doing divination and so on. And the spirits can home in on it that way. So, of course, the rising sun is identified with coming into being, life, and the setting is called death. Now, in Kemetic tradition, when someone has so-called died, but you don't really die, they say that this person is westing. So the land of the west is called Aminta, also known as the beautiful west, Nefra Aminta, right? And it's the Asar lives in Aminta or in the Neterkurt, and he's also known in that stage after he has died in the physical realm, resurrected in the underworld, he's known as Asaru Nefer, Asar the beautiful one, or the beautiful hair, which is a beautiful jackrabbit. Why a rabbit? Well, it's kind of connected the same as the Easter Bunny and the Trix Bunny, dealing with the fertility to have things come into being with the help of Asar and the masculine principle. We'll talk a little bit more about that as time goes on. Now, in the Yoruba and Congo traditions, your life cycle is identified with the movement of the sun. You come, pardon me, you come from the womb of the mother, you emerge from the invisible realm, and you'll return to the invisible realm. And in truth, there's no such thing as death, just constant cycles of consciousness becoming conscious of itself. See, so we live in a very dismissive society because we have been trained to dismiss everything that goes against our Western way of learning, you see? So they got this thing called epistemology of, well, how do you know what you know, right? So there are different ways, there's different methodologies that we use to, well, learn. Sometimes through tracing back to original sources, right? Or primary sources. So, you know, for instance, one popular work that a lot of people have been grabbing is the Book of Thought, the Atlantean. Now, it's a great read, but the problem is that you can't find its original sources. So you can't utilize that from a scholarly method, but you can say, well, I got something out of it because the book is full of Hermetic principles. It teaches about Hermetic philosophy and everything else. Only difference is that it takes it out of Kemet and puts its origin in Atlantis. However, people have tried to look for the primary source and they have not been able to find the primary source of those tablets. So just to give you a heads up. Now, mainstream science, right? They go the other way. Mainstream science will dismiss all the stories about alien abductions from around the world, no matter how similar these reports are. They say these people are all either making it up or somehow having the same hallucination around the world. The U.S. does, however, have the most abductions of the so-called great alien species as any part of the world. However, the abductions of the grays have been connected with Canada, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, South Africa, as well as the abduction reports of Zimbabwe, where children claim that they seen small gray beings come out of a craft and spoke directly to them. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with Credo Mutwa. He's the last of the Sanusis, the Zulu shaman, or the great Sanusis, the Zulu shaman. He had some pretty interesting works. There's a book he got. I wish I had it with me. I'll show it to you. It's called Indaba, My Children. Zulu Shaman. There you go. Now, in that book,
Yeah,
Zulu Shaman.
I got Indabo too, but I don't think I have it in this room. But yeah, but I'm a big fan of Baba's work too. So yeah, I feel you on that. Keep going. I don't want to interrupt. I just want to share one of them, but I got Indaba as well. I'm see if I can find it too.
Yes, see? He speaks about all the various races and extraterrestrial beings and extraterrestrial beings or dimensional beings. And he even speaks about ways of how to communicate with them, certain gestures that he'll perform to let them know that, hey, you come in peace, so do I come in peace. So that means that they've had this knowledge for quite some time. Now, another interesting thing is if you're familiar with the works of Malidoma Patrice, he speaks about something dealing with, some extra dimensional stuff too. He said that when he was watching Star Trek, he had a similar reaction to Credo Mutwa, talking about the very movies that's been produced here. Because Credo Mutwa was saying a lot of these beings and a lot of these movies are actual entities, right? Well, Malidoma Patrice, he had mentioned that when they were showing all this stuff on Star Trek and the teleportations and everything else, his thing is, well, how come they're being so open with this? So there's something that these indigenous elders know that a lot of us think is myth is actually some real stuff. Credo Mutwa also mentioned that, and in their language, in the Zulu language, time and space is pretty much the same word. So in other words, they recognize it as the same word. And Credo Mutwa also mentioned something else at some point in this book where he talks about humanity having its origin, or the Zulus having their origin on Mars, and how wars on that planet left the planet uninhabitable, and they came to Earth. And Credo Mutwa gets filthy with it. He talks about how one being came from the stars and had his dog with him. So, hey, you got all kinds of interdimensional beings, but you see, our minds can't conceive. How could a being from another planet have a dog come with him? You know what I mean? But that's the thing. You're in an interdimensional world, in a holographic universe, where everything that you can think of is possible. But they want to close your mind up so that you agree with the paradigm to keep you enslaved. So you constantly question yourself and you question your abilities, and you keep on saying, I can't. When I told you before, we're not even solid. We're beings of light, slowed down in physical bodies to appear that we're limited. Where you think you die when there's no such thing as that. Only constant transformation. Even if the planet was to get destroyed and smashed, it's going to reformat in some other reality, because life is always going to find a way to exist, because consciousness has to express itself through a life form. You come from formlessness to form. You see? So each and every one of us is the gods expressing themselves in physical form.
Yeah.
So
God having a human experience.
Indeed.
Spiritual beings having a physical experience, or God having a physical experience, human experience, whichever one you want to go into. And I did find my Credo Mutwa in Daba, so I got that, and then I got the Zulu shaman. Like I said, Baba Mutwa, he's a powerful force in this whole space of everything that we're talking about, especially if we're going to start talking about interdimensional travel and time traveling, astral projecting all that, because he's actually a abductee. He's been abducted before. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so those who knows know his story, like he really was someone who was taken, from the planet into a craft, and things happen. So that's another conversation for another show. But I say all that to say, when we're talking about this universal construct and interdimensional travel, I wasn't going to get into this, but I think I want to just kind of tip my toes into it, because I feel like you're somebody who I could have this conversation with, because due to some of the recent guests on the channel being people who are believers in being indigenous to the Americas, being indigenous to Turtle Island, and the Moors, and the whole movement of the Moors. Which for me, I'm a student of all of it. I'm a student of Dr. Noble Drew Ali. I'm a student of Marcus Mosiah Garvey. I'm a student of the Kemetic practice. So for me, to see it really kind of gets on my nerves, to be honest with you, because it's like we're still trying to beef with each other on bullshit, right? And I just got to say it that way because it really is bullshit. Because we got the argument now, Africa versus America. No, it ain't no Africa versus America, nothing. From my perspective, personally, if Mother Africa is my mother, then Turtle Island and America is my father. It don't matter because my people were everywhere. You know what I mean? But to be really real, I know I'm not of this planet. I'm someone who came from different star systems. I'm a cosmic being. So the universal prime creator of all that is, was, and ever will be is who I'm a product of. Therefore, I'm not tying myself to this little small planet like a grain of sand, on a beach is what this planet is to the universe. So I'm not going to get into that dog eat dog, chasing his tail argument. But for the sake of spits and giggles, I would like to get your perspective when it comes to the debate of humanity, if it started in Africa or if it started in America, or if our ancestors are our ancestors based upon where we were born, our physiological or genealogical phenotype, whatever you want to call it. What is your perspective in regards to like the whole Africa versus America debate?
I think, to be honest with you, there are those who have infiltrated us and they're trying to get us to pick and choose. You see what I mean? You've incarnated so many times in so many different forms. I'll even go as far as to say that you've incarnated both in Africa and in America, Asia, even Europe. You've been incarnating for a long time. And remember, when I talk about a holographic universe, I'm saying that every part contains the whole. So you're not disconnected. So when they talk about ancient Kemet, when they unify upper and lower Kemet, they call that Samai-Tawi. When Haru was victorious over Set, who caused nothing but division and confusion, he was able to wear the red and white crown. He became Haru Samai-Tawi, unifier of two lands. Let's do that. Let's unify the two lands. It's time for another Samai-Tawi. It's time to unify Africa and Turtle Island. Because we've been sailing back and forth between the two continents for a long time. I had an age what they call the Red Indian. Okay, I had a Red Indian years ago tell me that Africans were coming over here by boat for thousands of years, and I was in New York at the time, and this was back in 2000. No, it wasn't even in 2000 yet. This was back in like 1994. Okay, when I first heard this. So we were able to sail back and forth. There's a current that sweeps the boat right off of the coast of West Africa right to the Americas.
Mm-hmm.
They had boats.
Yeah.
They have in Australia. The Aborigine got pictures of boats on stones and everything else. So, our ancestors were sailing around the whole globe, So that's the thing. But by them... Mm-hmm.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was going to say, and shout out, Ibatu to the honorable ancestor, before Columbus. He wrote the book, They Came Before Columbus. I'm having a brain fart right now. I cannot think of his name. Ivan Van Sertima. His work speaks and breaks down all of that. You know what I mean? Like in regards to us and how we travel and traverse the whole entire planet. Like, I mean, so even if you go back to the times of Mansa Musa and Abu Khari, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, for real, I think African Black Girl said it best. What are we talking about here? Like, we need to be building from within, which we're doing here in the African Spirituality Experience community. We're building from within, and we're building united on a united front. So for those that come in and try to create some sort of separation or division, if you don't fall in line with the unification, we'll just, we'll block you and keep it pushing, because we're not going to have anybody coming in the guise of division or separation, because that's not what I stand for. That's not what this channel stands for. And it's definitely not what any of the guests like Baba Khepra PTAH who comes here. I know for a fact there's nothing about him that speaks separation. So if y'all on that, y'all got to miss us and go to another channel, because we don't move like that here. We're in a united front and we're moving collectively, and that's what it is.
Ashe. And thanks a lot. That's sister. Was that alien black girl? Thanks a lot, sister. We agree. So, and we're gonna keep on building. We're gonna keep on expanding, because that's the revolutionary act that they don't want people talking about. Is the expansion, the connecting. You see what I mean? Us having this conversation right now, we're tearing down walls of separation. Now remember, back in the day, when J. Edgar Hoover, created the FBI, one of the things he had said, right, is that we must find a way to stop the rise of a black messiah that's going to galvanize the people, right? And they also went to infiltrate all the black organizations, all the black institutions. A lot of people don't understand that one of the most, or the most important black institution that they have to destabilize is the black family. And to get us bickering and arguing and having gender wars and stuff like that. This is something they created. This was something that was created outside of us, being put in an unnatural situation that is not us. So we have to change that, So we have to get the love back. In fact, earlier, Brother Baba, you mentioned about the Merkaba. Merkaba operates on love.
Yes.
See? So Mer is a Kemetic word for love. It is also the Kemetic word for cultivation. And Mer is also the pyramid. So Mer represents ascension. Ascension of the Ka into the Ba is Merkaba.
Yeah.
So we're here to have that ascension.
Yes. No, and I love that, man, because then that's what it is. Like I know what it is. I know who it is. I know the trolls or whoever it is that try to come through and slide with that bullshit. I know a lot of them are agents. They're bots. You know what I mean? Like I'm not naive. I'm not dumb. Like I get it. You know what I mean? But for us who are really involved and who are really for the cause of the culture, we cannot allow these things to deteriorate what the building that we've already done. We can't let it corrode. You know what I mean? The bricks in the foundation that's already been laid. Like we cannot let it, diminish, the cohesiveness of which we have put together and so eloquently and so like beautifully, you know what I mean, for us to be here today having this conversation. Like, so for those people, like I said, y'all got to miss us with that because we not on that. Like we about love, light, you know what I'm saying? Unification, manifestation, actualization, activation, crystallization, and we're going to keep on doing that. And ain't nothing nobody going to do to stop it because at the end of the day, we are collectively all aspects and pieces of the creator, just like the 14 pieces of Asar that was separated. We are each individually a piece of the ultimate fabric of the universal prime creator. So you can't tell me or try to mislead me or throw me off track to fool me with no misdirection and all that bullshit, because we don't do that. Like we tapped in and we know who sent us. We know why we're here, and we're going to do what we came here to do by any means necessary.
Shay, indeed. Multiple.
Okay, so
we reincarnate many places. Some remember, some don't.
Yeah.
True. And that's it. Part of our mission, or part of our experience, is to traverse a situation which we forgot who we are. And that's where divination comes into play. Because the minute you come out the birth canal, right? The minute the doctor slaps you on your booty and your eyes open up and you see all this light, you have left one world. Now you're traumatized. That's a traumatic experience for that child, for that baby, because you've left one world and you're in a new world. You got a bunch of people staring at you and you just came out the womb, right? So you begin to forget. Remember I talked about how you go to the sleep stage and you can start getting downloads and everything else. And then when you start moving around, you start forgetting your mission. Well, that's what happens to that baby. When you're a baby, you forgot the pact that you made with the ancestors before you came through, before you came into this or remanifested into this reality. So the whole thing is about remembering. Learning is to remember what you already know. So, and thank you, Baba, for bringing up Credo Mutwa, about how he was abducted, you see, because, he had mentioned about being abducted by the Greys. He also speaks about the reptilian involvement in the manipulation of humanity. Now, here's the thing.
Sir.
What's interesting, if you've seen the Marvel, the Avengers movie, they call those reptilian beings, they call them Chitauri. Credo Mutwa called those beings Chitauri or Chitauri. So that means that Marvel Comics had been like dropping little jewels here and there for a long time. And also keep in mind that Stan Lee had been connecting with people going back and forth to Africa. He was learning about Anansi the spider and gay Spider-Man. He was studying the myths and legends that are coming out of Africa. So a lot of these folks, they know these comic books are not just comic books. A lot of things, they're telling you the truth about things that are form of metaphor. Sometimes they're esoteric teachings. And if you study metaphysics and study comic books, you're going to see that a lot of those metaphysical teachings are in the form of those characters.
I share. That's facts, and that's so divine because I can't tell you how many episodes that we've spoke about that. I know me personally that I've spoke about it because everything that we're seeing, especially in the blockbuster movies, whether it's Batman, Superman, Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy, X-Men, you name it, all of that is taken and stolen away from some form of our ultimate creation story. If not the creation story, off of the walls of Kemet, off of the petroglyphs that are found around the mounds and around all of the petroglyphs in all of the caves, all of the different historical monuments or sites on this planet, it's all written and all left by our ancestors. So therefore, they left it there for a reason, for us to find the crumbs like Hansel and Gretel, to put the pieces to the puzzle back together, for us to do exactly what we're doing right now, because we know that we're going to have this magnificent, monumental reset, shift, transformation, elevation, and crystallization of the new reality once we get enough of us who are able to ascend to the next dimension and then go ahead and, continue and complete this ascension.
Facts. And the ascension that we're looking for, we're also talking about an internal ascension.
Yes, sir.
How we're resurrecting from within, while you're getting that internal oil to lubricate your internal eye or your first eye. You see? So, indeed, we can't forget Runoko Rashidi. I had the pleasure of meeting Runoko Rashidi when he came to Seattle years ago, and he did some slides and broke it off about the journey of our sisters and brothers. He made the journey, showed the journey from Africa into Asia, here and everything else. He had a book called where he connected Africa with Asia, and it was so long ago. But
I wish I could have got to meet him. I didn't get a chance to meet him, man, but he definitely was one of our brilliant scholars. So shout out to Natural Sekhmet Nine Ether for bringing up the honorable ancestor. You about to know to him as well.
Yibashe. Indeed. And that's it. We have a lot of ancestors with sometimes it's good to crack open some of their books and just get a refresher on it. Because each and every one of us, we're also writing our story. We're also writing our books. And we're also tapping into a universal book. They call that the Akashic Records, or what I call the writings of Tahuti. Everything that you do leaves an imprint in the universe. Nothing is ever really forgotten because the imprint is always there. That's why when you're looking up at the stars, some of those stars died out millions of years ago and the light is still reaching the earth. It's just reaching the earth. That's things to be said about your spirit. Your spirit, it appears to die, but it doesn't die. So another thing, I wanted to talk a little bit about the first reported experience of abduction from the graves was a multiracial couple by the name of Betty and Barney Hill. This happened back in 1961, right? And what's interesting is that they were put under hypnosis, and that's how their memories were activated about what had happened. They had to have their minds reactivated because they literally had forgotten what had happened, but they knew that something wasn't right. So when they were put under hypnosis, they remember driving in their car and seeing the shiny object flying over them. And next thing you know, they're on board a craft. So Lady Betty Hill, she said that one of the beings showed her a star map. Now, I'm gonna talk about this a little later because there's a reason why I'm bringing these beings up. People who have experienced abduction by the grays have said they've been paralyzed. They had samples taken from them, being examined on a table in a state of paralysis. Credo Mutwa said the same thing, right? So and by the way, when you feel like you're in a sleep state of paralysis, or sleep paralysis, here's what you do. You see, it's not always a demon riding your back. It's not always a witch riding you. That's not always the case. Sometimes what happens is that one part of you goes to sleep and another part of you remains awake. Your physical body may be somewhat asleep. Your astral body is awake. Let your physical body go to sleep. And what you'll discover is that you'll be able to leave and you'll basically not have a body. And you'll be able to see 660 degrees around yourself. Remember, there were certain initiations in Kemet where they showed where the Ka was separated from the Ba, where the person would be revived after 3 days to show and prove that they actually had a spirit and that they were an immortal being. That's part of an initiation. So if you've experienced that, when you've had sleep paralysis and you was able to go to sleep, leave your body, and understand that you're not limited to this form, that was a form of initiation for you. The ancient ones were initiating you right there. Or should I say your Ori or your higher self was initiating you right there. That's why a lot of people are having dreams of deities and everything else coming to them, because the ancestors are reawakening, and they're basically bringing back that knowledge in you, because you never really forgot. It's just suppressed, and it's in your subconscious, and it's in your cells. It's in you on a multicellular level. So
Yes, sir. Nah, I love that, man. Hey, and you know what? I kind of want to go here with this because I feel like I already know I'm gonna throw an alley oop like Chris Paul to Blake Griffin. I know you're gonna come and bam it down real quick, but when we talk about the essence of Esu, right? I had to this week I had to put a lot of time into doing some work with Esu, right, and creating some Esus and things of that nature, right? I'm sure you probably can attest to this, but from my own personal experiences, um, I know every time I mold or create the formation or creation of an Eshu, right, the stone-headed figure that we create, as to tie into the journey of, a new adaptee or a new, practitioner of the tradition, right? So every time I went into it, I kind of had an idea of how I kind of, me personally, wanted to kind of like manifest it or create it, to mold it or whatever you want to call it. But every time they're like, nah, we don't care about what your idea is. Like, I'm going to come into the formation of what I want to be, right? So this
yeah,
week,
uh-huh.
this week, this week, well, I was like going back and forth because I was really trying to get him to kind of like, go, how I wanted to kind of paint my Picasso. He was like, nah, I'm not doing that. So let me ask you this: when it comes to that, and we all know, especially us who are on the channel or who are members to the community that's been in the tradition of Ifa Isheshe, or who has some sort of tutelage or some sort of knowledge or some sort of journey on it, right? We know who and what Eshu is. Can you kind of speak as to like what you would equate the formation of an Eshu as to how it's kind of unpredictable, just like I would say the interdimensional travel or traveling or traversing the multiverse? Like, can you kind of tie like some sort of correlation into your personal experience as to like your handlings or dealings with Eshu and how that kind of relates to the, I would say, uncertainty or the unpredictable travels that we have anytime we're traveling, astrologically or astral projecting or spiritually, whichever way you want to call it.
I'm glad you brought that up, because you see, here's the thing. Art itself is an expression of the spirit. And a lot of times, the way our conscious mind desires something to be, the deeper part of our spirit, right, wants it to be something else. Now, Eshu, right, in Isheshe, we don't see where Eshu and Elegbara are separate or totally separate beings. We understand that Elegbara is an incarnation of Eshu. So Elegbara means the owner of power, the owner of the Ashe, the owner of the force. So they say is that you're tapping into the force. And when you're tapping into the force, right, all they call the Jedi, which is one who has activated the Jed pillar. When you tap into the force, you allow yourself to be guided and you let spirit work through you. Eshu has a way of letting you know that spirit is going to work through us whether we want it to or not. Eshu lets us know that it's not our conscious minds that are in control. It's the spirit that's unconditioned that is actually in control. And it's the agreements that we made with our Ori and how our destiny is going to turn out. So Eshu will come in many different ways. Eshu deals with random or things that appear to be random just to wake you up. Sometimes Eshu says you wanted to go this way, but it will benefit you to go that way. But if you keep on going this way, I might just let you go. And sometimes Eshu will say, no, we're going to go this way anyway. So Eshu can do any of those things. Eshu is the divine messenger. So what's interesting is that I've encountered Eshu. And this is what I want to talk about too. I've heard a lot of practitioners say that you do not encounter the Orishas in dream states, and I have to disagree with them. I will disagree with them. First of all, your dreams are expressions of the spirit, but the spirit has to bring to you as a message. So if beings come to you in the dream state, then that means that message is coming directly from spirit. You don't determine what somebody else's dream necessarily mean to them, or the fact that how the spirits and the deities are going to communicate with that person. A lot of people are actually practicing Ishe in West African traditions because spirit came to them in dreams. They're not making that up. So Eshu came to me when I was having sleep paralysis one time. Now, of course, we could talk about Eshu being a faculty and the Orishas being faculties within our being. I get all that. But remember, the universe is our collective consciousness of us turned inside out. So when you're tapping into Eshu is going to come into you any way that's necessary to get your attention. So as far as you shaping the heads and they're coming out differently than how you originally wanted them to come out, but they come out just right. They come out the way they're supposed to come out.
Man, bro, listen. That's the funny part about it. Like, I ain't even gonna lie. Like, I love the whole like process and experience of it because I already know. Because when I was taught the very first few that I made, my teacher, shout out to Goonie, man. Like, yeah, it was another Shango priest on top of that, which is even more dope. But Shango Daily. So it's like, but I remember like when I first learned how to do it, I remember him telling me like even when he first started, he was like, yo, it's like I remember like going into it and I was like trying to get it to go this way and do this, da. He's like, but he's like, it's never worked out that way. Like every single time it's going to form how it wants to be formed. You don't have the control over that. Kind of like if we make goals or plans, it can possibly go our way, but ultimately it's what the creator has to say. You know what I mean? Like it don't matter what we trying to do. It's what the creator is going to make us do or put us in the position or the place to do. And that's where what you just said about how nobody has the right to dictate or determine or even evaluate or assess what happens or does not happen when spirit or Orishas or ancestors or deities come to people. I really wanted to like interrupt right then and there because when you said something, you really said something that really spoke to my soul because that's what this whole Ashe is about. Like the ancestors, they came to me with this. Like this was from them. So for the people who have made comments about I need to do this or do that, no, I don't, because you're not the one who gave me this mission. You're not the one who gave me this assignment, and you're not the ones who are backing me, who are pushing me, who are making these divine alignments like you and everybody else who've been a part of this, and every member, every listener, every viewer. That's the divine assignment. That is spirit working, and I'm doing my best to be obedient and not get no spiritual ass whippings. So anybody else that got something else to say, you take that and do whatever you want to do with it because it ain't about you. Because hell, this ain't about me. It's about me listening to who sent me. So y'all can do whatever you want with that, but that's what this is about.
Indeed. And remember earlier, I think in the other episode, I talked about one of the highest levels that you get into martial arts is when your spirit takes over and your mind is not the one doing it. That's why that anime adventure of Goku in the Dragon Ball series, Toriyama was actually breaking off Asian traditions of metaphysics and whatnot. The idea of ultra instinct was basically you can dodge and you can punch without the mind telling you when to do so. In other words, the mind is not interfering in the process of him being a martial artist. That's what the aspect of Kung Fu is supposed to teach you, to align with your spirit. See, this is the Tao. When you're automatically aligned to the point that you don't hesitate, and your mind is not getting in the way and causing you to not be able to do what you're supposed to do, with all the fears and all the what ifs and all that bullshit that keeps you from being able to move straight forward. You see what I mean? So it's kind of like we have to deprogram and reprogram ourselves as well, because we agree with a lot of the stuff, not knowing that we're doing so, because we're not taught to read the fine print of what everybody is telling us. But at the same time, what we've gone through is not necessarily our faults, but it is our responsibility to overcome these things. It's not your fault that things may have happened to you when you were a child, but you can't hold on it forever and use that as a crutch for not moving forward. Otherwise, you won't survive. That's how that works. You see? So each and every one of us have been gifted with the tools of how we can overcome our situation and awaken the God within ourselves. Now, one thing, too, I wanted to talk about, experts in hypnosis, they understand that we are capable of seeing things with our eyes closed. Okay? So we have the ability to transcend the senses and cause things to come into being, but that's because spirit is working through us. You see what I mean? Like you say, spirit is going to make sure things are shaped the way spirit wants it to be. The divine wants it to be. You see what I mean? And when aligned with spirit, we come to find out that when I'm doing Reiki or if I'm doing healing work, it's not kept up at top. It's the divine spirit working through me and using me as a vessel. There's one prayer that one of my shamanic elders, I used to hear him say. He used to say, "Let me be as a hollow bone." And when he would call on spirit, or when he would call on energy to work on healing, he would say, "Let me be as a hollow bone, so that the will of spirit can work through me." So each and every one of us are as a vehicle of divine spirit. We just have to be at one with that, or atone with that. So earlier I mentioned about, being able to see with your eyes closed. You can also put people in trance via the state of repetition and emotional impact. That's what the media and propaganda has been doing to us. The media and propaganda is an excellent tool for such a thing, by keeping you emotional and repeating things over and over again, so it can get on your nerves and have you all agitated. And a lot of people don't even understand why they feel the way they feel, or why they're seeing things the way they're seeing things, how they can't get along with their family, how nobody around them wants to be bothered. I just had a brother who came back from Nairobi. He said, "Man, it's exhausting to be over here." He was telling me that nobody acts like they want to be bothered. Well, that's because they got people chasing a whole bunch of unnatural stuff. You ever read that book, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion? And it talks about the elders of Zion, they get together and they were going to create all these distractions that's going to tire people out, get them so they don't trust each other. First of all, they won't trust their government, then they won't trust each other, and then basically they'll have everybody right where they want them. Now, some people say that that's a book of fiction, but I will tell you that every method that's in that book, right, I see it being played out. Everything that they talked about in the Brother Lynch and the Willie Lynch, in the Willie Lynch letter, the Willie Lynch paper, all that is being played out. And that is, they want to mess with your psyche because they control you by keeping you under hypnosis. The issue is that they keep everybody in a trance state. And that's why we have to deal with the concept of what I call transcendence. That means it's the end of the trance. You're ending the trance, okay? In the form of transcendence. That's what it is, to transcend, to end the trance. Because a lot of us operate off of trance states. Emotions are trance states. It's not that emotions are bad. It's just that you got to learn how to harmonize with them. But a lot of times our emotions are coming about from our subconscious, and they may come about as triggers. So you have things in the media, right, and people around you who are constantly triggering these things. And they keep you in this state of perpetual ill health, releasing cortisol in your body to the point that you're getting sick. Then they put it all up in the food. Food is information, and anytime you eat food, like in that movie The Matrix, which I'm going to talk about too, when Merovingian talked about the lady eating that cake, and basically it tastes good, but it had poison in it. It was also talking about the cake representing a program that this lady was eating and downloading into her being. A program within the program. And what it is that when you eat all these foods that got all those stuff in it, they understand that you're putting information in your body. And when you start putting all this misinformation in your body, you're going to start expressing misinformation from your mouth, from your action, and everything else. But that's the whole idea, to keep you misinformed so that you cannot align with the correct information that is around you. My fere funeshu, my shay. So that's the thing. You don't have to be in a zombie-like state to be in a trance. For instance, emotions are tied to the subconscious, like I mentioned earlier. So breakdowns and outbursts, these are all the triggers that they keep on having you go through, and you're exploding at your significant other because you're constantly being, aggravated and activated. You see what I mean? One of the good ways of being able to overcome that is through breathing exercises. It's good for you to take some time and go out into nature and breathing into the nose and breathing out of the mouth, and going in nature and taking on those negative ions that you find in the woods and the forest. You see what I mean? Because each of these places is considered a portal to spirit in a different realm. For those who are familiar with Umbanda and Kambanda in the Brazilian traditions, it talks about these 7 different spirits in 7 different realms, right? So you might go to, they call these Esu spirits. You mentioned Esu earlier. They got Esu spirits, they got Pomajira spirits. And what it is that these are not Orishas, so to say. They're ancestors, but they have powers similar to Esu, but there's different legions of them. So what I learned is that when you go into like the beach, there's a portal at the beach, and there's certain types of Esu spirits that you may have that are connected to the beach, or you may have one type that's connected to cemetery, or you may have another set that's connected to the forest. So everybody got these different connections with these various aspects of spirit because they're supposed to be doing something different. And that's the thing. You know, when they try to have everybody do dress right, dress like they're in the military, and everybody got to be in uniform and do the same thing, that's militaristic. And when you're trying to build an empire, right, you want to keep everybody stupid so that you can have a military and send your soldiers out to kill people by telling them that these people that ain't never done nothing to them attacked us and is trying to. That's what they do. You read Sun Tzu's Art of War, and Sun Tzu's Art of War talks about keeping the soldiers at a certain level of education. So, you know, for a long time, America has been under, should I say, a seventh grade level of education, no way of thinking, and have fallen down at the bottom of the charts when it comes to education because they've been teaching us, they've been training us, not teaching us, not educating us. Because when you educate means to bring something from within, educare. So we're bringing something within. And the thing about it, they keep you miseducation and trained. You're indoctrinated. You're not really learning. You're just regurgitating. So a lot of people at this point in time is starting to say, well, you know, I don't want to just go through the system and regurgitate what they're talking about. More and more people are beginning to say, hey, man, I had this experience. I want to look into it. Sometimes you can share with people. Sometimes you can't. But the more you do the work, you're going to discover that people in your family who may have looked at you weird one day may actually come to you for advice because they might start experiencing the same thing after a while. You see?
I sure.
So you know,
no, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's powerful, man. And there's several things that you hit on that I would like to get a little more like maybe perspective or clarity on. And I think for me personally, right, there's been a lot of comments that I've seen on the channel where people who feel alienated, who feel isolated, who feel alone, who feel by themselves, specifically and primarily and precisely because of what you just stated. And what I've done, I've been trying to keep up with as many of the comments that I can to reply. But I think I know I replied at least one or two today, but it was, I don't know if it was a brother or sister, but they were saying how it was like they've always felt connected to a lot of stuff that we're talking about and have this, you know, connection to spirit, visitation, you know what I'm saying? Like all the things that we're talking about. And they were like how their family, because I think they were like Christian, and how they kind of like alienated them and like really just shunned them. And I was like, yo, you're not alone. Like pretty much everybody who's a part of this channel is a black sheep, is an outcast, is someone who is different from the rest of the tribe, or I should say familial construct, because we are the ones who have been chosen. And I'm not saying chosen as if we're better than, or, you know what I'm saying, superior than any of our family members or, you know, whoever it may be. But I'm saying it because we were chosen, because we heard the call, we heard the voice, we heard the spirit, we felt the presence of the ancestors, the deities, the gods, whether it's the Orishas, the Loas, the Kemetans, the Netchers, the, you know what I mean, whoever you want to call it. We all felt, heard, seen, saw, and have been we've received access to this frequency that we're talking about today. So when it comes to that, you as being someone who I know just off of our personal experiences or conversations, you've had experiences where the gods have intervened in your life. Like they have shown direct affiliation and like presence being there in your life in real time, you know, in different times. So how can you give like confirmation, but not just confirmation, but also I would say like a form of like co-signing that those who feel alone or alienated, who don't have a support system or who don't have a house or a spiritual home, you know, all these different avenues, like to have some sort of sense of belongance or some sort of sense of being not alone. Like how can you share some of your journey or just what you've experienced either as a Baba or as, you know, as a practitioner on your journey, to kind of let them know like this is what it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, this is part of the process, but it's worth it because you're going to get where you're supposed to be because you were the one who was chosen, you know, like the golden child. You were the one out of your family that was chosen to do this work, or at least to be a receiver of the information from this work, to be able to also not just help yourself, but help those who are blessed with the ears to hear.
thank you for that. Here's the thing. The reason why you appear to be different is because you're here to make a difference. So a lot of times you're not going to fit in, because if you do fit in, then you'll become a tapestry or part of the tapestry of the very prison that needs to be shattered. So what you do is that you go on your own inner journey, because you see, you're never truly alone. You're always connected with spirit. And this is why I think it's important when people learn to call on their ancestors, and their ancestors come and start talking to you in dreams or showing you things in the form of symbolism and everything else. You don't have to fit in, okay? You don't have to. However, what you do want to do is you want to learn about you as much as possible, because the best way I could say, I can just tell a story. A lot of things that I was into, I couldn't watch football with people without sounding metaphysical. I couldn't sit down and have regular conversations with a lot of my family members, because it just simply wasn't who I was. You know, a lot of people thought I was strange and weird. And you know what? Eventually I stood it to own. And I said, you know what? Okay, that's
Me
okay.
too.
You see what I mean? You know,
And I love it.
people said, you
I
know,
love it.
yeah, that's it. Fall in love with it.
I'm a
Own it.
nerd.
You know,
I'm a whole lot of things, but one thing what
exactly,
you ain't gonna call me is not a child of God. So don't play
exactly,
with
exactly.
me.
Indeed. When people say that you're different, own that shit. You are. There's nothing wrong with that, because you're gonna do something unique. You see, the artists always come about with something unique. See, art is not perfect. That's what makes it beautiful. We are perfect in our own way, but we're not here to be perfect. We're here to go through the journey. You see what I mean? Art is not perfect. The beauty in art is not perfection. The beauty in art is to show how one can be creative and awaken that creativity, and it gets better and better and better. You see what I mean? So you continue as an artist, you continue to write, you continue to do. Even Baba, when you mentioned earlier about making the Esu heads, that's art. And one of the ways in which you want to learn. Maybe if you feel like you're not fitting in, perhaps you can try to tap into your creativity. What is it that you're here to invent, right? Now they talk about the famous inventor Nikola Tesla, whether he got the knowledge from Egypt or what. You know, he was not the same as everybody else, but a lot of like the Tesla coil and all that, AC/DC and all that's connected to Nikola Tesla. You see, his children were inventions. Maybe you're here to invent something. You see what I mean? You know, maybe you're here to be an artist. In Ifa, you learn that everybody got their own unique Odu. The problem is that this society, like I mentioned earlier, is militaristic, because it wants everybody to be alike, to be a soldier and wear the same uniform, and make you think that you're supposed to fit in everybody else and become a prisoner of popular opinion.
Yeah.
Popular opinion is a prison.
Yeah.
So if everybody got some weird opinion about you because you decided that you're going to express yourself in a different way, and you're not hurting anybody, you're doing you. And that's what you're here to do. You're here to be God in physical form. Well, God is unique. So God has different expressions. The Lord of Mari is going to express itself in many ways through different vehicles, not to be like everybody else, sister, or everybody else, brother, but to be you. That's the beauty of it. You're here to be you, like nobody else. Nobody can be you better than you can.
Nope.
You see? And if everybody is acting weird, crazy towards you, maybe it's because you got a light that everybody is trying to stop from shining. They don't understand it. It hurts them. It's a mirror. So you may have the mirror up to them. You know, you don't even know it. You're shining so bright that you're reflecting them to themselves. And that's what it is. A lot of times they can't stand it. But that's all right. You're not here to be a prisoner of somebody else's opinion. You're here to do you. So learn about who you are and study yourself like a book, because it's knowledge of self that is going to be your salvation. And another thing too, you know, what makes you a God is not because you can recite a whole bunch of facts. What makes you God is when you can utilize this knowledge and awaken the creator, creatress within you. Because the English language leaves out the word creatress, because they keep on, you see, they got everything masculine. There's creator, there's creatress. So awaken that creator, creatress within yourself. In African spirituality, there's Mawulisa. Mawulisa, right, is the Bodun deity, which is basically equivalent to Olodumare. Mawulisa, Mawu, sometimes they just call the deity Mawu. Mawu is the mother principle, which is the lunar aspect. And Lisa is the sun, which is the masculine aspect. But guess what they call the soul? They call the soul Mawusi. So yes, you're a little Mawu. Within you is a little Mawu, like Sophia. Sophia, right, representing the wisdom, also representing the soul part of you in the Gnostic traditions. That beauty, that expression, you bring unity to the ability to discern and the ability to intuit. And you let that come out into your art. And that's when you begin to create. When you start doing physical things, that's when your magic begins to work, because what starts out at the fuzz in the subtle plane, it comes down and you work it to the physical plane. And that's how you build the ashe. You bake your own ancestral sticks. You set up your own shrines. You see what I mean? Make your own clothes if you have to. Make your own elekes. Oh, I don't have mine on. Oh well. Make your own elekes. You know what I mean? If you have to. And you know, get them consecrated.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Whenever somebody's trying to control your creativity, they're trying to take away your magic. Listen, the word magic is connected to the word imagination, and the divine image connecting you to the magi, which are the people who are the stargazers. So a true magician is a person who is connected to the stars. Become a star. You're here to be a star. You're here to shine bright. A magician is a person who has tapped into the imagination and can communicate with the forces of nature, the forces of Neter, the Neteru. So you're here to also connect with the forces of nature. Ifa is the wisdom of nature. So you're tapping into the wisdom of nature. And you're allowing this wisdom to be expressed into your daily lives. You see? Now, another thing, too, about that part of you that goes beyond just the physical form is your ability to get into, trance states. I wanted to come back to that because when you get into these traditions, like, for instance, let's say you go to a bembe, the rhythm of the drums and certain types of music can also assist in the quality of your trance states. In fact, in Orisha bembe, but the level of intensity behind the drumming, chanting, and singing will open you up. Certain people will be open to being mounted by the Orisha or an ancestor, where that person will be taking that person's body, or that the spirit will take this person's body over or appear to, and that deity will actually speak to that person. And sometimes the person will do amazing things, like go to random people in the room and tell them something that only they would know. That's how you know it's not fake. Or in some cases, consume a bottle of alcoholic beverage, and when the spirit leaves that person, there's no evidence that that person ever drank or touched any alcohol. That's what I'm talking about, the power of the interdimensional self. You see, you're here to be supernatural. Or earlier, when you mentioned about how you were sitting down meditating, you felt like Superman, and you was able to shoot up. That's what we're here to do, to awaken the Superman, awaken the Superwoman. You become Haru, meaning one who rises above, and becoming Heteru, right? Heteru is the feminine aspect of it. And if you look at the idea of Heteru, her glyph shows a hawk or a falcon inside of a hieroglyph that looks like a box, because Heteru means the house of Haru. Wait a minute, the house of Haru. What is the house of Haru? What's the physical plane in which the falcon, which is the life force, can express itself through? So you have to awaken that part of you. Heteru, she represents the desire. Oshun represents the desire to move forward. So one of the ways in which you can help manifest your prayers is to put feeling behind your prayer. Feel it. Allow yourself to feel because you're here to experience sensation. And this is why it talks about how when Olodumare brought forth creation, what happened is that Olodumare was able to put the final ingredient in creation, and that is Oshun. Why? Because it's desire. There's an aspect of desire in which why you're really here. You see what I mean? So Ifa works on randomness. Ifa works on probability. Ifa requires question, input, and gives an answer. Ifa assists the diviner as a way to interpret information. We're here to interpret information. We're surrounded by information. Ifa functions like a spiritual computer. However, unlike the computer, Ifa intelligence is not artificial intelligence. Ifa intelligence is divine intelligence. A man-made computer uses a binary code like Ifa. However, the binary code used that is the foundation of computer code here evolved from a German polymath by the name of Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz. He was inspired by the I Ching system of divination. Now, wait a minute. Why am I bringing up I Ching? Because it's a binary system like Ifa, right? The binary system, which is the 8 trigrams, which makes 64 hexagrams. The same with Ifa, only Ifa has twice the number. Ifa has 16 Odu, and then you have 256 combinations. right? Or 240 combinations, and altogether 256 Odu. So it's that form of divination, the binary system of divination, which came through China, but which is still connected to the original man and woman in Africa, right? Is what gave Leibniz the idea of the same binary code system used as the foundation for modern computing. Now, here's the thing. The Cubans believe that Orumila speaks through the I Ching as well. There's a story of Ifa tradition where the Chinese are identified with the Fulani. Now, I'm going to go off and I'm going on a quick tangent here. The Fulani are of a nomadic African people who occupy Senegal and Cameroon, and they are Muslim cattle herders. Now, many of the Fulani were captured and they were brought to places like Texas to tend to the cattle. The Texas Longhorn is a breed of Spanish and English cattle. The Spanish cattle actually came from Africa. So the Texas Longhorn, in that manner, is actually of African descent. Now, the word Fulani means those who wear hats. The Fulani, in this case, are identified with the Chinese, okay, where Rumala wanted to teach them Ifa, but got frustrated with them because they were so busy fighting and bickering over opium, so he gave them half the system. That's the story. So basically, you might could say, in that sense, if you look at Ifa as a universal principle and get it to transcend the idea of culture, restrictions of culture, you see Ifa as a universal principle. You can say that Ifa in so many ways is actually the parent of even the system that we call the computer.
Oh, it
So
is.
I say,
I
indeed,
didn't mean to
indeed.
interrupt you, but look, we both share a similar piece of our library that breaks that down in a very, very, very precise manner. And shout out to Baba Chief Obafemi Fayemi, because he had a
Yes,
really nice piece in here
yes,
that he spoke about, and he literally broke down, I mean, precisely everything you just said, from the binary code of the 010111, etc. And we saw it in the
indeed.
Matrix. Rimala was the
Facts,
key to the Matrix. Like,
facts,
and,
facts.
and Odu, because Odu, what I would equate, Odu was the Oracle, Orumila was Morpheus. That's how I'm seeing the Matrix. You know what I mean? Because
Facts.
that's where you
Yes.
saw the masculine principle of the highest form of intelligence meet the feminine principle of the highest form of inner, dimensional transformation, or the deliberation, or the manifestation of the message from spirit, or the moon, womb man.
Right. And if you notice something else, I want to piggyback off of that because there was there was the mother, the father, right? You're dealing with Odu,
Mm-hmm.
you're dealing with Rumila in the form
Mm-hmm.
of what you point out is being Morpheus. Morpheus was actually the spirit of dreams, right? And then you had
Yep.
and then by the way, Neo, if you twist the spin the word around, it becomes the one because
One.
he represented the
Yeah.
oneness and the oneness. And
Yep.
then so you had also the Rumula aspect, the Tahuti aspect in the form of Morpheus, and you had the Oracle who was the Odu, and you had another interesting character that you encountered in either I think two or three, and that was the Architect. Now, the Architect, right? Since Morpheus would represent also that aspect of discernment, what the architect represented is the left side of the brain having total control, right? Being out of control, being out of harmony, and looking for that one and how to correct something, right? Because he's saying, wait a minute, this is imperfect. There's an anomaly here, and we got to get rid of the anomaly. You see, but what's interesting is that he had to turn to that same anomaly in order to stop a virus in the form of Agent Smith. I'm going to talk about this a little bit because we about to get it's about to get a little interesting. Have you ever heard of these beings called the Men in Black? Right, and I'm not talking about just that regular story about that came out around 1997, but I'm talking about beings who have been reported seen by those who get too close to information on UFOs, and a lot of times people report that these beings would come to them and they resemble the MIB, or in
The agents in the
1997,
Matrix.
you're correct. The Agents of the Matrix. In 1997, in Columbia Pictures, they gave us the movie Men in Black, written by Ed Solomon. Now, hundreds of cases of the mysteries in Men in Black has been identified since the 1940s, right? The MIBs often show up in threes, and they're believed by some to be interdimensional beings. And they're also seen in dream states. And recently, I found out that there's someone who I know who have encountered these men in black while she was astral projecting, or when I say remote viewing, and that these beings were stopping her from going beyond a certain point. So the men in black often show up to interrogate witnesses of UFO and UAP phenomena. They wear all black overcoats. They wear old-fashioned government suits. Their shoes are well polished. They often have pale skin, and sometimes they speak like the Agent Smith character from The Matrix, because that's how they actually act. All right. So you had a man by the name of Albert Binder. He was a UFO researcher who lived in the 1950s when he experienced a visit from these three men. They did not say much to him vocally, but what's interesting is that they were speaking to him telepathically. Now, this scared him into silence, and he said that after these men had shown up, he's kind of like toned it down about his research of UFOs. At least he started keeping a lot of it to himself. And also you had cases of this that took place in Virginia in like the 60s. This happening all throughout the 60s. And I think the most recent one was like sometime in the 2000s. But you had 1967, which is about Edwards, a man by the name of Edwards, where one of the MIBs came in wearing dark glasses, even at night, right? And there's a lady by the name of Judy. She said that they wiped her memory of some of the information that she had gotten when she was talking to them about UFOs, because they came to her out of the blue and told her that she needs to be quiet about what she's seeing. And one of the things that you're going to be seeing when you look into these beings, just look them up. Men in Black, the real Men in Black, are much more scary than Will Smith and I can't think of his name.
Was it Tommy Lee? Was it Tommy Lee Thornton or something?
Yeah. They're much more scary. The real Men in Black are reported to have like these unnatural robotic movements, movements that are too precise, unnatural speech patterns, outdated suits, outdated vehicles, shoes that are overly polished, wearing dark shades even at night. So you have to ask these questions. Are the Men in Black from different timelines? Are they spirits? Are they aliens? Are they time travelers? And this is when I want to talk about the aspect of different timelines, because a lot of people who report seeing these beings or these gray aliens, they talk about they're here to collect something that appears to be genetic, like there's something wrong with their genetics. Now, I've heard people make fun of them and ask, okay, well, how come these beings are always naked? Well, their insides are atrophied. Their insides are atrophied, so they cannot eat like you and I. The way they eat is they literally have a solution that is poured onto their skin and is absorbed through their skin. So they don't have any clothes, they don't have any genitalia, and they say that they are reproductions of clones. Now, not too long ago, I ran into something that was called Project Looking Glass. And you might could look it up, you know. This information, I just ran across it recently, so I didn't really, haven't really well researched it. But what I find interesting is that there was an episode where they talked about they did not want to let the public know what they had seen because, well, first of all, they found something that looks like alien technology when it looks like a plasma ball when it's activated, and it shows you different scenes from the past and from the future. And they saw, I guess, the future of humanity. And they said that something happened that destroyed civilization. The survivors went underground. And what happened is that the beings that lived underground began to mutate into these beings with big heads, large eyes, and skinny bodies. And I suspect that they had discovered the secrets of time travel. And that's probably what people are seeing. Now, there's a whole lot of things going on, too. I'm not saying that there's not extraterrestrials. But if they keep on collecting samples from humanity, and they keep on collecting samples, they don't actually kill the person. They just take their samples, right? And they said the way they eat, the way all the cow mutilations is because of some type of substance that they're getting from the cows in which they absorb into their skin. When they pass the waste off, they got to do this because they got to wipe the waste off of their skin because it's coming back out of them through their pores and everything else. So that's the type of beings we're looking at. What you're looking at is you're looking at stunted, mutated future humans that have come back to repair themselves and also been doing certain things to manipulate us in a certain way so that we can go through a different path and a different timeline. They're from a different timeline of our future, but they're also trying to save themselves and also combine their DNA with the original DNA, which is ourselves, so that they can heal and create a hybrid species that's more evolved and advanced. That's the school of thought around that particular situation. So we talk about quantum aspects, the quantum aspects of consciousness. We're saying that these beings are able to communicate telepathically. But who's to say that we're not communicating telepathically? Who's to say we're not talking to ourselves all the time? Who's to say we're not talking to our future selves? Who's to say that our future selves are not talking to us? In Ifa, they talk about Ejiogbe. They talk about yourself that lives in heaven. But there's also a story about how people are often not able to marry, not able to have families because they're already married in heaven. They already got a connection in heaven. So when they come to earth, they still have this connection, and their husband or wife on the other side in another dimension is interfering with their ability to have a stable relationship.
That's deep. Let me ask
So
you
you
this
got,
real quick, Baba.
mhm.
And I don't want to interrupt, but you said something that I had all intentions on getting to on this call, because I really wanted to, like, truly want to find out the answer, based upon my own personal experience, right? So the first call we did, the E5 Kemetic connection, right? I remember
Uh-huh.
like I remember I was going crazy because I'm like, yo, he is like this shit is crazy. Like you was going ham, and not that you're not tonight, you are too. That one was so, it was just like, it was different because the energy, I really feel like you initiated or sparked the presence of the gods. And I said that on that call, and I'm gonna say it again. And when that happened, it's been a bunch of different domino effects that I've seen that's transpired in the physical 3D, quote unquote, third dimensional realm after that. But what I want to do is ask you this question based upon everything that we've heard tonight. And shout out to the tribe, because they going ham in the doggone comments. They're going crazy, like for real. And I love it though, because it's all love and everybody just building. But when it comes to what I witnessed and thousands of others, from our first interview, and I remember all the different feedback I got, all the different calls, texts, comments on the channel. But most of them, well, a lot of them was even people who have direct access, like who know me personally, was like, yo, that who is that guy? Like that dude, he's different. Like that, like it was dope, but it was all positive though. It was all love. But me personally, I said it too. But let me ask you this, because I don't want to assume, because you know what they say, when you assume you make an ass out of yourself. But even if I do, that's fine. But I want to say, when I saw you on our last call, and I was just listening, I was hearing, I was feeling like everything was in divine alignment. But what do you think about this thing called mounting, possession, automatic writing, automatic transmission? All these words that define a quote unquote separate entity inhabiting or taking control of, or pretty much coming into the possession of, to do their will or their communications or whatever the case may be, and then leaving and going about their business after the fact. Because this is just what I personally felt, and we didn't even talk about this off air or our personal calls or nothing, but this is something that I wanted to bring up tonight, because I felt as if when I watched the first time when we interviewed, I felt as if I saw a real life transmission of the spirit, the energy or entity of a real pyramid builder or a real god or goddess that was possessing you, like was literally speaking through you. Not that you don't have that capability as the Baba Khepra PTAH, who I know, but I saw, I heard, and I felt something that to me felt otherworldly and different from anything I've ever experienced before. So can you kind of share your own journey, your own process as to what you feel about this thing called mounting, possession, auto transmission, auto transmission, like whatever we want to call this thing where multiple deities or entities are kind of like simultaneously occupying the same entity to deliver information?
Yes. One of the things that we have to keep in mind is that we have given ourselves permission for such a thing to occur. They cannot do it without your permission, number one. Number two, remember, Ori cannot do anything or will not allow the Orishas or the Egun to do anything to you, for you, or against you without the permission of Ori. So when you give Ori permission, you give yourself permission to open up and receive and become a person that transmits messages. That's what a lot of so-called light workers are here to do. Not everybody is here to do hands-on work or that is send energy to their hands. Some so-called light workers are just simply here to bring the messages and allow that message to come through them. And that way, they'll basically be able to reach a whole lot of people. And sometimes all they got to do is reach one or two people, because you see there's a such thing as morphic resonance. And that morphic resonance, according to William Sheldrake, is you or them picking up on the memories of their species and being able to allow these memories, right, to evolve and work through them, because you're picking up on universal consciousness. And they call that the Akashic records. You have the Akashic records. When you tap into the Akashic records, and they call that automatic writing, there's two things that can happen. Either the highest aspect of you takes over, or you can let a being take over and work through you. But on the grand scheme of things, being in a holographic universe in which we live, where every part contains the whole, that is also a part of you. So you're giving a part of you permission to work through you. There's a lot of fear about possession and everything else, and they call it possession like you're some type of used car that's been stolen or being repossessed. But it's not more so much like that. What it is that you become the divine vehicle and expression of the gods. That's why I said earlier about becoming a hollow bone, because the elder speaking about being a hollow bone, allowing spirit to work through them so that they do not try to control the outcome of the situation. When you're doing Reiki healing, when you're doing pranic healing, you let yourself become a hollow bone so that the energy comes through you, and you do not use, I do not use my ego as Khepra PTAH or Jamal to do the work. I allow myself to become a vessel in which the energy can flow through, and I allow the spirit to guide my hands, and wherever the spirit guides my hands, that's where I send the energy to. The issue of it even come to atomic writing or automatic writing, people let their minds get in the way, and that cuts out the flow. What you want to do is use your left hand, which is connected to your right brain hemisphere. Some people it's the other way around, by the way. Allow that part of you to sit, work through you, and just randomly write. And do not try to control what comes out. And then you're going to, first you may see words, first you may see sentences, but eventually those words and sentences become paragraphs. And then they become messages that are cohesive. Allow yourself to write. Get a notebook and write. Relax. And ask the Netaru, ask Tahuti to come and work through you. You can say Anecharak Tahuti, Anuktater Tahuti, Anuk Tahuti, and let Tahuti come through you. Anecharak Tahuti, Nuktater Tahuti, Anuk Tahuti. Let Tahuti work through you. Anecharak Tahuti. Show me your face, Tahuti. Nuktateret Tahuti. I'm the power of Tahuti. Anuk Tahuti. I am Tahuti. So first, you understand that you identify with Tahuti. Then you see yourself as the vessel of Tahuti. And then you see where you and Tahuti are one. You got to become one with the very thing that you're trying to achieve. Like I said earlier, it's not so much that you're not focused. What it is that your focus is everywhere. You just got to unify your focus. That's what it is. A lot of times we're fragmented because we're not focused on one particular thing. We're trying to focus on too many things at once, and that's what keeps people tired. If you want to be able to channel, then you have to give yourself permission to allow it to flow without ego stepping in and saying that I'm not sure this is going to work, because that's what it becomes a problem. Now, a lot of times people may channel something that's coming from the lower aspect of themselves. Sometimes it's ego, sometimes it's pride, sometimes it's hurt, sometimes it's trauma. Sometimes you got to let that stuff come to the surface so that it can be dealt with. Other times, they may have to actually go and get some assistance, some counsel, because sometimes they're dealing with Elenini and self-created demons. And these self-created demons are aspects within their psyche that creates blockages in their lives. So if you want to be able to move beyond this physical body, then what you're going to do is you're going to take in the breath and you're going to relax. The more you relax, your auric field begins to expand. When you're constantly on the go, when you're constantly anxious, what happens is that your auric field contracts. When your auric field expands, that's the idea of being ire, a state of expansion. When your auric field contracts, that's when you are in what they call Osogbo or Ibi. Now, I'm going to tell you something. The way the universe works is that you have Ogbe, you have Yeku, and you have Iwari, and you have Ed. When you look at Ogbe, what you're looking at is you're looking at straight lines, right? Side by side. That's Ejiogbe. When you got two, or Mejis. All right? These are for those who are familiar with Ifa, but don't worry, try to follow along. Ogbe deals with the light of consciousness. Oyeku Meji comes next, dealing with the death. Remember, the light rose in the east and sets in the west. And then you have Iwari. This is talking about the deep seer, the ability to see from within and take a look around us and see what is affecting us. And then the last of that first four, which is important, is Idi Ogbe, or Idi. Idi Ogbe is my Odu. Give thanks and praise to Idi Ogbe, Idigbe. That's the spirit of the drum. That's where the drum comes to earth. Ashe. We give thanks and praise to Idi Ogbe. Ashe. Now, Idi Meji, that deals with the womb, in which things come into the earth and they're born. At first, in Iwari, if you look at the Odu Baba, you're going to see that Iwari has darkness, light, light, darkness. Idi is the opposite, where it's got light, darkness, darkness, light. What you're seeing is that how consciousness begins, right, in the light, and it goes through a period of uncertainty. And then it goes within, it starts from within, and then it expands outward. And that was first Odu as the secrets to what they call creation. Now keep in mind, there's also the story of how Oyeku was first, and then Ogbe took its place. Why? They say Oyeku refused to make the sacrifice, and Ejiogbe made the sacrifice. Well, what is it that sacrifice? It's the light that's expanding outward. Oyeku deals with contraction. So it's reminding you that you came from the invisible world. When you die, which you really don't, all you do is you go back into the invisible world. We've been taught we die, and that's where all the fear is coming from. That's why it's a fear of letting go. If you want to channel, if you want to get connected with higher forces, the idea is of letting go. However, sometimes what people think is possession of a spirit of a demon and everything else, that's also something that's coming from the desolative subconscious, which is something that needs to be dealt with because it has become a living entity of its own. It's not a true living entity, but it acts like one. And it can also create thought forms that literally interfere with their lives, where they'll literally have issues with their appliances. There are plates falling out of the cabinet. See, that energy is actually coming from them, but they're projecting it. And this is how powerful your mind is, to the point that you can actually cause appliances to shut down in your house, plates to fall out of your cabinet, and think it's a spirit when all the whole time it's you. There's a such thing as heavenly mates. We mentioned it earlier about the heavenly mates. That's kind of where I was going when I was talking about the connection to the gray aliens that can have sex with human beings, and also the Egbe that can have sex with human beings. Because what I'm talking about is that these forces and these spirits can literally touch you from another dimension. So a lot of times when you have dreams that you're making love or having sex with beings on the other side, that is your Egbe. They can interfere with you having life on earth, having a family on earth. However, something else what's interesting is that there are people who have been abducted by these beings who are told that they were put in a state where they would have an orgasm. Now, in a state of orgasm, if you are left in that situation long enough, in that state, if you focus on anything long enough, in that state, it will manifest. Because orgasm is the feeling that you need in order to generate an outcome. That's why they want to control your sex drive. When they control your sex drive, they can stop you from manifesting correctly. And by the way, there's a lot of shame around sex. And they've also been putting stuff in the food to destroy your sex drive. Also, there's things that they're putting in the food to take away your ability to get angry. Wait a minute, hold up. We're not supposed to get angry, right? Well, anger is actually an energy that you can utilize, and you can transmute that into creativity. A lot of times when people get angry, it's when they make the changes. A lot of people think that they're maturing because they don't get angry anymore. But the problem is, it's not always just maturity. Sometimes it's the food that had been put in your body that has compromised you to stop you from feeling the things that you're supposed to feel in order for you to make the changes that you're supposed to make.
Whew.
Now, do you let anger take over your life? No, you don't. That's why you transmute it. But every so-called emotion has its purpose. And this is where alchemy comes into place, where you can take that inner fire and you can light that inner fire and you can fuel yourself to move to the next level. This is where creativity comes into place. And this is why they don't really want you to be creative. They want you working a 9 to 5 all the time for the rest of your life. And if cool, you can keep you working 2 and 3 jobs at once so you can just pay bills and that's it. That's how they keep you a slave, and that's how they keep the battery going in the matrix. And this is why you have to take control of your energy. Because if they control your energy, they control your mind, they control your time, they control your life. And that's why we have to take control of our energy. That's why it's important to work with Esu, because Esu represents the owner of Ashe. Okay? That's why it's good to work with ancestors. It's also good to recognize the power of the Iyami Osoronga, which are the advisors of Olodumare, who actually protects Olodumare while Olodumare is taking a bath. There's a story about how Iyami Osoronga wanted her child to be watched by humans on Earth, but the mother of humanity decided that she was going to neglect the child of Iyami Osoronga. So what happened is that the children of humanity got a hold to the child of Iyami Osoronga, which is the bird, and they took and they roasted his flesh and ate his flesh. And this is what angered Iyami Osoronga towards human beings, which is why human beings have to get the eating or receive from on behalf of Rumala, who intercedes for them on their behalf, so that the Iyami and the elders of the night do not take people before their time. That's what that represents. But there's also a story in the Dogon that talks about how how the great cosmic mother gave birth to a Nomo that was in the
Oh
form
my
of a
God.
fish and pissed off the
Baba,
people of the
baba, baba,
Nomo
baba, baba,
because
baba.
they
I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I don't want to interrupt the transmission, but with all due respect, I only wanted to jump in and intervene because I promise you. Oh my God, this is crazy. It's amazing. But I was just reading and studying some material today on the IJ, on the Iyami, on the Iyami Osoronga. And I promise, like I literally just learned a little bit about what you're talking about today. So that's the only reason why I wanted to kind of chime in, because the thing that was the most like profound and like powerful and impactful to me is the fact that I think it was what's today? Today's Friday. It's hard to keep up. Today's Friday. I think I did a live with brother Rod, Big Chief. Shout out to him like a couple days ago. But I just remember talking about like the mothers and like the significance of the feminine energy, right? And how powerful it is. But the fact that the Iyami Osoronga, like they are attributed to like the animal totem or the spirit totem, whatever you want to call it, characteristics of the birds, right? And then I was just studying today and I was just reading about literally what you was just talking about. And it's like, it's crazy because they came here to do what they came or what they were created to do, which is to be the nurturers and be the mothers and to be, you know what I'm saying, who and what they are. And because they came in the form of birds, and I know for all my deep research, even going back to Baba Mutwa and a lot of stuff I learned from him and a lot of other teachers, is that the birds are like some of the most ancient and the most intelligent species on the planet, right?
right.
So I just learned today about how the Iyami Osoronga received the power that they received based upon the pact that they made with the great god of heaven, Oldemar, but it really was about the pact that they made with humanity, like for humans to not destroy or do any harm to their children. But then humans broke the pact by eating, like you just said, birds. So now you talk about the chicken and all these other aspects of like what people consume, and then the havoc and the true sheer force of power that the Iyami have to destroy anything or anybody damn near at any time by any means necessary. And the only thing that can really save you is you being a child or having some sort of affiliation with the protection of Orumila. Can you share as to like just a little bit more about maybe why that is, how it is, or how significant that is based upon tonight's conversation. And then we can go back to the rest of it, but it's just like, that's not a coincidence to me that I just was studying this today, and then you said that specific thing that I was just studying today.
Mm-hmm. Iyami Osoronga represents, now there's also in Africa, there's a society of wise women that goes back to the time of the matriarchal period, where there was wise women that also had a place of dominance in that particular period, right? And there's also the aspect of Odu. Odu is also connected to the Iyami. The Odu represents the 16 wombs of creation. So you want to basically be in harmony with that energy. There's three aspects of the Iyami, which is very similar to the fates of the Greek pantheon, or the three daughters of Allah, if you will. And that is, you have one that represents the black, she's the neutral. You have one that represents the red, she represents war and bloodshed, she'll destroy. Then you have the white with the Fun, which represents coolness and expansion. So you'll see that there's a number of this divine trinity that works as cosmic forces of nature that keeps things going and keeps things balanced. But there are also the reinforcers, the enforcers. They watch Olodumare while Olodumare is taking a bath. So you mean to tell me that you think you can get away with disrespecting the cosmic mother and nothing is going to happen? So they help to protect things that are going on a certain way in this realm, but they can also interfere with you and what you're doing and take certain things away from you if you do not acknowledge them. So especially those who have a relationship with the Iyami, time that will come where they'll say, "Oh, you're gonna have to basically give the Iyami some innards." A lot of times, people who have issues with the Iyami and mothers Iyami, they will discover that parts of their body. Remember, I talked about the gray aliens, how their insides are atrophied, okay, and they can't eat like you and I. They got to have like stuff smeared on their body so that their body will take in the nutrients. But the Iyami will basically eat your insides if you do not comply with universal laws, or if you go against universal laws, or if you have a connection with the Iyami but you refuse to acknowledge them. There's actually a story where Arumala was attacked by the Iyami, and the Iyami was inside of his belly, so he had to do works to get her, have her come out of him, right? So there's a story that each and every one of us, where we have, let's say, anger. When you're angry, your internal organ, your liver, will actually start showing failure in your liver, issues with the liver, because anger, it finds its way into your liver. A lot of times it's when around between 12 and 3 o'clock, when your liver is acting up. Well, 12 and 3 o'clock at night, midnight, when the chi is like concentrated in that area in your body, was interesting. That's where a lot of people find themselves waking up between 12 and 3 o'clock. And that's when you want to go out and feed the Iyami, especially a priest. You might want to do that with the supervision of a priest, though, or someone who understands what it is they're doing. Because a lot of times they're like innards, they like the innards of birds, like the innards of certain animals, or the innards of rabbits. But I knew one brother who said, "Hey, man, you can go ahead and take some bananas and some oranges and peel those and give those to the Iyami because they like innards." So yes, the Iyami represent the most of nature. There's also the lunar aspect of the Iyami. They represent the aspect of the unseen realm and the aspect of consciousness. It is said that the Iyami also hides within the realm of the Iroko tree. The Iroko tree also deals with the ancestors. But you have an Iroko tree within you called your nervous system. So a lot of it is being respectful to the mother. Honor your mother and your father. Honor your mother. Don't just honor your father. Honor your mother and your father, so that your days will be longer upon this earth. We've been living in this realm where they only focus on the man for so long. You got a Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost without a woman. What's going on with that? There's no balance. So you've basically built civilization off of a trinity where you took the female out. Now you want to slickly go behind everybody's back and worship the Black Mother in the form of the Virgin Mary, as the Pope used to do. But the thing about it is that they're suppressing that information. All that knowledge is dealing with, connected with intuition, being able to go in a trance state and everything else, all that's connected to the sacred feminine. So balance has to be brought back, because they have suppressed. That's what we're talking about, the suppression of the feminine. That's what we're talking about right there. You see what I mean? So that's other ways in which we've invoked the anger of the Iyami by not acknowledging that part of ourselves. Well, if you're out of touch, of course you're going to destroy Iyami Osoronga's children. And we're also destroying ourselves. You see? They're the architects of existence. They're the Odu. That's why there's 16 mothers. Just like there's 16 folds of your Great Pyramid. The pyramid has 16 folds in it. I had a fellow priest of Esu tell me that he went in a trance. Actually, he had a dream about the Iyami manifesting as the 16 angles of a pyramid. What is a pyramid? Pyramid is a fire in the middle. Pyramid. Pyramidos. And the pyramid that's built by ancient Kemetians was the Great Pyramid of Giza. Four-sided quadrilateral triangle with a base 360 degrees pi radius square. That's you. You are a pyramid. Your physical body is like a pyramid. So when you basically tap into the concept of the Merkaba, you have to cultivate that love. If you take the word Mer and spell it backwards in Kemet, it becomes Rim, which is teardrops. We are the teardrops of Ra. It was the teardrops of Ra which brought forth humanity. The Nubians are said that they are the seed of Ra. They talk about what Ra basically passed his seed into the earth and created Nubians. So basically, we're direct descendants and children of the sun. We looking into Yoruba, they also talk about themselves being children of the sun. The Zulus talk about being children of heaven. In other words, our origin, like you mentioned earlier, is from the cosmos. It's from a higher plane. It's from a higher realm of existence. It's just that we have forgotten who we are, and therefore the sickness, one of the main sickness and illnesses of the human condition is forgetfulness. When you heal, it's talking about becoming whole. That's what that means. To heal is to become whole. So basically, reason why I wanted to touch upon all these different realms and even different beings, because I wanted to get your attention. I wanted you to look into these other possibilities, because our minds have been closed down, because they want us to say, oh, hey, man, we're the only ones here. All this that we're seeing happening in this little bubble of ours is the only truth there is. But you see, the reason why a lot of our magic and our power is not working for us is because we done lost our imagination. They've taken your imagination from you. They've stolen your time from you, and then they gave you fortified time and got you thinking in the form of lineality. They don't get you to see the simultaneity of past, present, and future, and understand that you can combine them all and be one. Neo. The past, present, and future represents the now. And when you reverse now, you get one, not in the form of the number one, but the form of having one. That's victory. Victory is when you can be one with yourself, which means that you are one with the all. And remember, you are now understanding the nature of the holographic universe and how everything is dealing with fractals. And fractals are basically self-similar parts that make up the whole. If you take a part of the hologram, you can find a hole within that part of the hologram. That's why we have the ability, if we was to go there, yes, we can clone ourselves. Yes, we can do all that because your body is a hologram. Cancer is basically a ripple in a hologram. Diseases are ripples in a hologram. They're just disturbances, they're imbalances. They can be straightened out. But that's not what they want to tell you. That's not what they want to teach you. And by you not being solid, meaning that you can move from dimension to dimension at will when you let yourself get to that point. Which is why you can go to sleep and you can think about what you want to dream about. And guess what? You'll go there. They talk about lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming means that you can actually be in that situation and the dream feels so real. It's like you're there and you're breathing the air and you can feel it. Well, there's a Native American spiritual system that teaches that when you can take your hand and turn it up and turn the sky pink in a dream, that means that you're close to the realm of self-mastery. However, we have to tap into the inner light. We have to tap into our Orienu. They said at Orienu, inner Ori, do not destroy my outer head. Well, that is also connected to your character, your Iwa. And your Iwa is also your characteristics and your qualities, who you truly are when nobody's looking. Automatic writing will come automatically if you allow it. That's why it's called automatic writing. Nobody's forcing you. It's automatic. Nothing's forcing you. It's automatic. If it's channeled, it's coming directly through you because you're allowing yourself to be open to the channeling. And the only reason why in any part of you that can get possessed by anything is because you agree to it. Everything that we're dealing with has to do with some type of agreement we've made, some type of contract that we've even spoken or that we've signed or that we've agreed to. Everything. So we have to remember, that's why it is important. When you do the breathing exercises and you do your breathing exercises in the morning, you do your meditations, I call it meta-marinating. You sit still and focus and allow yourself to breathe and slow down the breath. And you do this enough, you're going to discover how much and easy your thoughts flow. And that you can write these things down. Each and every one of us have our own book, have our own story. And every time we look into the mirror, we're seeing our story. We're looking at a reflection of it. We're looking at ourselves in another realm. And we can tap into it at any time. Anytime. Iyami Osoronga. Epa! Ashe. Ashe. That's right. That's right. So yes, that's what we're here to do. You're here to remember. That's talking about the Osiris being brought back together. Set is actually the uncle of Haru. You know what's interesting? This story is just told all over the world. It's just that we're not paying attention. The story of Krishna, right? Krishna defeats his uncle. Basically, Krishna is the Haru of that story, and his uncle Kansa is the set of that story. The 7 Gopi women, or Krishna's 7 cattle, those are just the 7 head Haru and Haru. That's just a story retold all over again. Quetzalcoatl in America, that's the Tahuti of America, the thought of America. I had a dream one time, and not a dream, when I was sitting in meditation, and Quetzalcoatl came to me one time, and they showed me the image of a serpent, feathered serpent. And when you look at him, what he looks like is a combination of the vulture and the cobra, or the vulture and the serpent, which is on the pharaoh's crown. That's the unification of Upper Lower Kemet. But Quetzalcoatl is an American deity. He's also connected to Amaru, the serpent, or the shining serpent, which Tupac Amaru Shakur is named after. You see?
Look, I got you. Look, you brought up one of the you brought up one of the honored sacred deities that we hold near and dear in these Ashe streets, man. Is the honorable Tupac Amaru Shakur, also known as Machiavelli the Don, man. I swear on everything I love. I just was saying, like, what you just shared, I was just breaking that down to somebody, like, I think either today or yesterday, about the meaning of Pac's name, which is Amaru, well, Tupac Amaru Shakur, but it does mean the royal shining serpent. And when we talk
Right.
what I know of the serpent, I can go with the spinal column, I can go with the Kundalini, I can go with the staff of, the medical staff, like wherever you want to go with it. But ultimately, when I think about the serpent as well, I think about, the ancestors and the circle and the serpent, of how there is no end. It's a circle, the circle of life, the beginning. It's the transformation process.
Indeed. And that's it. Serpent was never a bad thing in our symbolism. It was never evil to us. According to the Fon people, there's a giant serpent that swallows his tail that wraps itself around the universe, and they call it Dan. In Vodou, in Haitian Vodou, is Dambala. Same thing, same Dan. Or Dan. Because it represents the energy of constant renewal. See, they knew that you don't die. It's just constant renewal. Constant shedding of skin, a constant renewal. And a constant awakening. Going to sleep and awakening. The universe going to a stage of dissolution and coming back into being. Remember, I talked about last time how the galactic center explodes every 36,000 years and releases uridium and rhodium into the atmosphere. And that's one of the things, into the universe. And that's one of the things that people have to understand, is that all of our initiations and our spiritual systems are getting us prepared for when we go to universal cosmic seasons as well. That's what we're here to do. We're here to learn, but we're also here to survive. The samsara that they talk about in Buddhism, the constant wheel of birth, life, and rebirth. Well, also, why are they talking about the samsara? Why is there an issue of coming back and forth? Because the thing about it is that there's also a very nasty cosmic event that happens so often, where people, if they're not ready, they'll find themselves getting swept away with the chaos that takes place when the universe renews itself, or at least when our solar system renews itself, when the galactic blast that comes from the galactic center. So you go to your first baptism by water, second baptism by fire. These are ancient mysteries. They didn't start with the church. All the church did was take these mysteries and bring them back and repackage them and got people having faith instead of understanding the necessity of direct experience. There's pistis, being saved by grace, but there's also the concept of being saved through knowledge. This is our people suffer from a lack of knowledge. There was nowhere where it talked about our people suffered from a lack of faith until later on. But yeah, you can see that plays into it though. You know, you do have to have faith in yourself in order to make the next step in the indwelling God in me, which is the breath of Olodumare. They say Obatala was able to take humans and shape them out of clay. Kenemu on the potter's wheel took humans and shape them out of clay. Well, you take Eshu's head, you shape it out of clay. And you allow it to have its own spirit. That's why spirit takes over, so that spirit can shape the clay. Because you're being reminded, it's not my will be done, divine will be. Not my will be done, but thine will be done. And that's the true concept of ultra instinct. What they talk about is because spirit completely takes over. When you go into meditation, when you're doing the breathing exercise and you start finding yourself rocking back and forth, you know what that is? That's your life force awakening. Let it go, let it flow. A lot of times you'll be seeing things into the corner of your eye, then you look and there's nothing there. When I was young, I caught them in my peripheral vision. Looked like tadpoles and beings of light. I caught a few of them in my peripheral vision when I was younger. So from time to time, you'll be able to find yourself tapping in. Sometimes you'll hear someone call your name and everything else. Sometimes it'd be the ancestors. One of the things, though, when you got all this technology around you, it's sucking up the energy out of the atmosphere. So it's good for you to go into those forests I talked about earlier. And by the way, when you lay down in front of your TV, do not put your feet in front of the TV. Just like when you're walking, you're going to get mounted by the ancestors. Sometimes people who say that they're mounted are getting mounted, or they feel like they're getting mounted, they'll feel an energy crawl up their leg and into their body. Well, you got some very powerful psychic centers on the bottom of your feet. A lot of times people is watching TV and all the radiation is going right into their feet, right into their body. Then they wonder why they're tired all the time. Wondering why they don't dream like they used to. Wondering why they can't remember what they're supposed to remember. Because you're absorbing all these frequencies that's going into your psychic centers and throwing you off. That's why you want to get connected with nature or netter. You see? So yes, we're talking about our spiritual experiences. Get back with the drum. Learn about the drum. Get back in the rhythm. And learn about all these things, because that is how you connected with your ancestors, and that's how they continue to connect with you today. A lot of times when we're going to the clubs and everything else, we're picking up on vibrations and everything else. However, the spirits in those particular situations are not necessarily the most enlightened spirits. Now, if you want to do that, then you're welcome to. But some people who are very sensitive will literally find that those areas leave a bitter taste in their mouth. And I'm not telling you what to do and what not to do, but some people are very sensitive. So it's good for you to put yourself in a situation of protection. Sometimes you might have to take a salt bath when you go into these situations. You may need to take a bath in spearmint to clean your aura off. You may need to go do what they call forest bathing, where you go into a wooded area and just let the trees brush you off and walk through the trees and let it brush off your aura. And by the way, you can let the trees, you can let the stones and the plants and everything else teach you. That's the African way. That's the indigenous way, you see. Now, you can go and get the knowledge out of a book. I'm not saying that you can't. I mean, I'm not telling you that you can't get knowledge from certain places. But if you want to go and really connect with nature and you want the spirit work through you and literally guide you where you want to be, connect with nature. because that's what they have done. See, a lot of times our people have learned that it's good to just be city folks now. But if you listen to grandma and grandpa and you find out that they had livestock and everything else and that they had to make the ends meet, but they also got out there and worked and did the physical labor out in the wooded areas or on the farms, they had a connection to nature. But here you got, you're listening and, listening to people who read books out of Barnes and Noble and they want to challenge their grandma, but their grandma had 10 times the ashe they do. And they're reading books on all the chakras and everything else. And all grandma did was sit in the rocking chair and hum. And visions came to her and everything else. She didn't even have to go to all these workshops and read all these books. She was just naturally connected. So yeah, you want a channel? Not Babalaos are not supposed to get mounted and let spirit completely take over their bodies. But Babalaos can also channel Ella. That's a form of light. That's a light frequency. So when you're going and sitting on your mat, you let Ella speak through you. And Ella will reveal what needs to be revealed. That's how that works.
Real quick, Baba, because we're going real hard and heavy, man. Can you share who or what Ella is? Ella, Eli. Some people might pronounce it different. Ebo, Abba. You know what I mean? Like, so can you, if you don't mind, like before we close out, because this has been another monumental epic build, as I knew it would be. But that you struck a real deep chord when you just said that, because I saw a comment earlier. Shout out to Brother Nkosi for posing the question and pushing the narrative on requiring further definitions, because there was a comment made on something in regards to Babalaos being like a watered down version of a Kemetic priest. So I'm not sure who the person is that made the comment. I'm not sure if they are a Kemetic priest or if they're a priest of Ifa or Orisha. However, I hope that they are at least one of those three, because if they are not, I would highly advise them not to speak on something that they do not have the accreditation to speak on. So being that we have two people that I know for sure are Ifa, Orisha, and one is a Kemetic priest as well. Can you kind of speak to, there's no such thing to me in my own mind or opinion as a watered down priest of any nature, and also who and what Eli is and how that refers to, or how that coincides with the path or the journey of a Ifa priest, Awo, or Babalawo.
Under my umbrella, Ella. Ella is light. Ella represents, Ella means to split. Okay. So you might could say that Ella helps define our consciousness. So when you're going into that trance state, what Ella does, Ella works through you by allowing the frequency to be translated into a language that can be spoken. Hence, Ella, Arumala is Ella. Arumala, Arun recognizes Ella, which they've also translated to mean heaven knows the way to salvation. You see. So yes, you might could say that Ella is the light aspect of Arumala. So when we work with Arumala, we're working with Ella as well. But there is also a chant specifically to Ella where Ella is referred to as the spirit of purity. So you're tapping into this undifferentiated consciousness that allow you to have the purity of the interpretation of what needs to have been told through your lips as the person who is on the mat. So that's what the Babalawo was channeling, Ella. However, Ella, being universal spirit, also represents something else that's even that much deeper. You have your differentiated aspect of you. You have your undifferentiated aspect of you. You have your objective realm and you have the subjective realm. So in order for you to take that knowledge, right, that you have within you and express it outwardly, you need to define it, because your true self is all knowing. But the thing about it is that it would not have a purpose if it could not put it into form. So what it does is it takes that knowledge and puts into a form that can be expressed. Hence, what I said earlier, being a life form. And by the way, Orumala also works with Esu. So one side of Opwele is Eshu, the other side of Opwele is Orumala. The Opwele is the chain used by the Babalawo for divination. Eshu and Orumala, they go hand in hand. They hang out with each other. But here's the thing. Eshu is an interdimensional being. So to the Yoruba, those who practice Yoruba-based traditions, Eshu is known as the divine messenger, as well as the keeper of the crossroads. The crossroads are areas where energies converge. They are the portals and the points of connection between realms as well as dimensions. Now, in Kemet, they add a counterpart of that. Sometimes it's Sebek in the form of the crocodile, who is the guardian of the threshold, as well as Anpu, who represents the jackal, who will lead the person into the oasis in the desert, because that's what jackals do. However, the jackal also will eat the mummy when the mummy has not been properly buried. So it was considered a travesty to have your body eaten by jackals. However, they identified Anpu, also known as Anubis, as the divine embalmer. So what he does is that he takes the corpse of the person and embalms them to put them in the image of Osir. And as a mummy, it means that they will not fall apart during the afterlife, as the soul is traveling throughout the Duat into the realm of the ancestors to become immortified or immortalized as a god, as a netter. Because each and every one of us, we're supposed to become the gods. That's why there's also a part in Ejiogbe that talks about, or in the Odu, it talks about how the Ori creates all, the Orishas creates the ancestors, and is referred to as an ocean. Your consciousness is an ocean. Kemet still lives on, my brother, whoever made the comment. Kemet still lives on, okay? Baba Femi, who is my elder, spoke about Kemet, and the key to getting to Kemet is the back door, and the back door is in West Africa. And unfortunately, we're doing the same thing that's continuing to keep us divided. The same thing that got us fighting about whether or not we're Africans or Americans. The same thing about whether we should identify with Kemet in West Africa. We're doing the same thing. We keep falling for the tricks of Eshu, and we keep falling for the Maya. And that's what's keeping us from being able to understand our true potential. Because if ego wasn't involved, you wouldn't be worried about what other people are doing. You would understand how you can connect with your higher self and go on your own personal journey. If it involves connecting with the Neteru will reveal themselves to you. I mean, who has 40 years to become a priest in this type of environment? It took 40 years in Kemet to become a priest. You have that time over here when you got to go to their bullshit school system, and you have to go through their brainwashing, and you have to take care of your elders because nobody else is taking care of your grandmother and your mother. You think you have time to be a priest and study for 40 years over here? Is there an institution to study for 40 years over here to become a Kemetic priest? Can you go into the great chamber, the king chamber, and lay in that coffer and get initiated? Can you afford to do that? Because they don't let that many people do it. And plus, they moved the coffer out of the way of the stars that basically was aligned to the king's chamber chap. So you can't even go there and lay in the coffer no more if you want to have a pharaonic initiation. Listen, in ancient Kemet, if you wanted to connect with that type of knowledge, yes, you have to understand that their initiation systems were thorough. I actually understand where you're coming from. But let me tell you this. In order for you to graduate out of that school of ancient Kemet for a 40-year graduation period to become a priest, you have to overcome every fear known to man. That's what their initiations consisted of. You didn't just go to school and write a bunch of stuff on paper and memorize the Pythagorean theorem and do it like a 5%er and memorize 120 and you were a god. That's not how it worked. You have to work your ass off as a priest. And then you have to be quiet and shut the hell up for years and listen. Are we ready for that type of discipline? A lot of people ain't. A lot of people are basically taking books of E. Wallace Budge and Robert Faulkner and making shit up as they go, talking about that's ancient Kemet. It's not. And the Neteru don't come from them. The Neteru would spit at them because they're full of shit. So if we want to connect with the spirits, the spiritual forces, you got to do it out of a place of sincerity. Then they'll come to you. Then you'll start experiencing the Neteru. I've had Anpu come to me. I've had Heteru come to me. I've Haru come to me. Okay? I've also had Legba come to me. I've Quetzalcoatl come to me. Yes. Yes. That's why I said, when you understand the nature of the holographic universe, these debates and these arguments mean nothing because you understand that every part contains the whole. That's the key. That's why I keep on saying, you want to go ahead and bring forth the pieces of Osiris or Osir and bring those 14 pieces back together and get his phallus back that was eaten by the Asirancha fish, which is a snotted fish. Then you got to look at how you've been fragmented since you were born. You got to bring back your pieces because that exiled 12-year-old in you got you tripping because that exiled 12-year-old in you has not healed yet. When you were traumatized at the age of 12 and when you're traumatized at the age of 14, I'm talking about a lot of us who've seen things that have traumatized us. And that child has not healed. And that's what the initiations were for. And you talk to counselors and wise men and elders and wise women who would help you heal that part of you. You know, the Hawaiians said that before Captain Cook landed on that place in Hawaii, nobody even knew what a mental illness was. There was no such thing. Now you're dealing with this Western society and everybody got a freaking mental illness and a mental problem. There's nothing healthy about a society with people full of mental issues and they pretend everybody is normal. And everybody got issues that the system done created in them. You want to connect with Kemet, connect with nature, and let nature teach you how to build another pyramid. The one that can basically connect with the same energies of the great pyramids of the Giza complex. Over 2 million blocks of stone. That doorway on that pyramid that opens up on a swivel. How the hell did they get 2 tons on a swivel? Watered down. Do people know how they got that doorway on the swivel? Is anybody chiseling those type of words in a metal netter on the side of the pyramid or the temples? Nobody knows how to do that. And if you do, show me. Because you have to be on a certain level of consciousness in order to do so. And it took years of training and initiation. And there are Babalaos in Africa that want to teach us, but unfortunately there's a language barrier, so you might have to learn a little Yoruba. Okay? But yeah, all the society we're at now, you're talking about going back to the golden ages of man and woman or woman and man. You're going back to the golden ages where people's consciousness was much more higher. You couldn't just be in politics and you couldn't be representing the state unless you were initiated and had the Netaru working up within you. The average person only has like 5 Netaru walking up in them. 5 of the Netters are woken up. There's over 360 Netaru. And people, the average person, body don't even have 5 of the Netaru awakened within them. You read the Medu Netter. Imbutua winter, Angintorenteru on the Sarman Ra, and it's a rock. Khepra PTAH Nefernerharuatan Ra Shaku. Speak that Kemetic language and learn it. Yes, learn it. Somebody said that the Medu Netter had not been translated, but yet still everybody keep on talking about you can tap into your melanin and you're supposed to pull that stuff right out of your memory. It's in you. But you can do it any way you want. If you want to burn freaking candles, then go ahead. Somebody that told you that you got to do things a certain way, and you done limited your consciousness, and now you're basically a slave to somebody else. A lot of these people making shit up, they're making more slaves out of people, lying and bullshitting, and people need to know the truth. Making stuff up so they can make a buck. Not trying to welcome people to awaken their minds and expand their consciousness, but so they can pimp them out again the same way the church was doing.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm
Pardon me, brother.
No, because look, your energy is raising up something in my energy, and what I know is I'm gonna go ahead and close it out only because there's energies like you said earlier that I know have a place in my life or have a place in my experience, because you can't have all light with no darkness, because if you do, then you have a whole garden of sheep that is really vulnerable and susceptible to wolves or any other, predators that come and just take it over or take, take it away from you, right? So that's how I feel tonight, because I knew it was gonna be dope, and it is, and it was, but it's like there are the other sides of energies that want to speak, and I'm gonna give them a smidgen, just a tad bit of runway to share a little bit about something, but I'm gonna go ahead and then close it down for us to do it again, to go into something that we spoke about before our very first call, which is talking about the aspects of our tradition that is not really our tradition. And what I mean by that is what you were just sharing, and what I'm seeing in the comments is that we have people who have been, I would just say, consecrated or initiated or have reached levels of their journey based upon ceremonies, right? And then they have a level of authority based upon them receiving or going through the consecration of these ceremonies, right? I get it. I respect it, all that. But at the same time, one thing about me that I've always been is somebody who's always going to stand up for what's right and speak the truth, and also be willing to go head on and go toe to toe with anything or anybody who tries to eliminate that aspect of my experience. And I've dealt with that in my journey. I'm just going to be real. I'm sure everybody else who's been on this journey probably has too. But one thing I'm not going to do is settle for less or allow anybody to have any type of influence or infiltration of that aspect of my personal journey and the journey that I've been blessed to kind of be riding on the boat or the ship with this whole African spiritual experience. And that is the fact that everything you just said, I know that there are people out there who are doing those things. They are taking advantage of people. They're taking money from people. They are taking peace from people. And they are doing things in a way that's not of Iwa Pele. It's not of Ire. It's not of, a form of balanced character, right? I'm no saint. I'm no angel. I'm not perfect. I fucked up. I've made a lot of mistakes, and I'm going to continue to probably make them because I'm human. But at the same time, anybody who really knows me knows how I move, and I move in a way that I really want to win, and I want to do things the right way. I feel like we've spoke outside of our interviews. We spoke maybe 2 or 3 times beyond that, right? Maybe I'll say 3, 4 times, right? But every time I spoke to you with a level of integrity and respect for who and what you are, right? There are people out there who, because they've had a quote unquote elevation, or they've had ceremonies and celebrations, that they have a certain level of, I guess, authority in regards to other people's spiritual journeys that are not, I don't feel like doing it the right way. And I also know that there's people who, they don't like to see other people win. They don't like to see other people get ahead, or they don't like to see other people do what's right for the sake of doing right, because they haven't figured out how to fight their shadows or their demons, or how to fight their personal fight, but they've made it to a place of recognition or titles or initiations that they have an audacity to want to use that to like dictate how others should or should not do or be. And that's something that I'm not going to stand for. I don't care how you feel about me, because at the end of the day, you didn't create me. You might have been on the journey. You might have played a role in the path, but you did not create me. So therefore, the creator who created me is the only thing that I report to, or that I know I have to give unapologetic total alliance to, right?
Shay.
So with that, for those who are watching, for those who are on different parts of their journey, who are in different places in their path, what would you leave us off with when it comes to Ifa, Kemet, metaphysics, or just simply spirituality, or simply holistic connecting with the creator and growth? What would you leave us with for those who may have someone who's a quote unquote spiritual leader, or priest, priestess, consultant, whatever the case may be, or who do not have, but they see this channel and they see other things online, whatever the case may be? What would you leave the novice, the adept, or even the initiate? What would you leave them with as a memento or a token to like share all that you've accomplished and all that your journey has encompassed, what would you leave us with to share for us to have confidence in our child of godness, but also some clarity on to like not feel inferior to no one else based upon our quote unquote perceived lack of experience or knowledge or progress in this thing called spirituality? Can you hear me?
The question was that for me or them? I thought just
Oh
asking
no, that
you.
was for me. I'm sorry. Let me take that comment off. No, that question was for you. I'm gonna take the comment down, so I don't want to like
Okay.
misconstrue it.
Okay. Well, I want to talk about something because when it comes, and I'll leave you with this, and I also want to leave you with a prayer on behalf of Esu because originally I intended to talk about Esu tonight based on the fact that he has a lot to do with the crossroads and being able to move through our various dimensions. A lot of it, I say, has to do with language and what we learned. A lot of us, we're not necessarily learning how to listen because of the fact we've been thinking symbolically for so long. Remember, I talked about people speaking about being able to put 2 and 2 together and get 22, but that's because you're dealing with symbolism. If you put 2 twigs next to 2 twigs, that's the actual number. You get 4, you see. And because of our symbolic thinking, it has led to a lot of misunderstandings and arguments. Eshu is also the gatherer of the great multitude. And keeping in mind that Eshu is the master of all language, we also have to pray for knowledge, wisdom, understanding. Not only to make sure that our words are not confusing, but other people's words are understood. It's important to approach Eshu before the other Orishas, because it's Eshu that translates human language into sound in the Orishas. The universe operates on sound, frequency, and vibration, and there is much theory and speculation on the idea that suggestion that we live in, that our world is a simulation. If we're living in a world that is a simulation, then that means we're living in a world of possibilities as well. And what I would like to leave with everybody is to just keep your mind open to possibilities. Don't let the things that sound dark and weird scare you. Don't let you if you feel isolated. Own your uniqueness. Don't look at it as you being different, but own your uniqueness and see things from different perspectives. Allow that to be so. There's no need to argue about whether Elegba and Legba are the same deity, because there are different aspects of the same entity throughout the multiverse. And the beautiful thing about it is that you have the choice on whether or not you want to explore it. As Shu is the keeper of the gates, the portals, as Shu also gives us the ability to shift through universes. As Shu has a little tool called the Garabato, where he rips a hole in the fabric of time and space and he can go anywhere he wants to. You could do that with your mind, you see. But we have to overcome the aspect of the imagination that has been turned on itself. Tap into your imagination because somebody doesn't want you using your imagination. Tap into your imagination. Allow things to flow. And the thing about it, your imagination may think of it one way, and spirit may come to assist you and say, okay, I got it from here. A lot of times that's how that works. This is basically the journey of alchemy. A lot of times through the journey of alchemy and the science of transmutation, people start making discoveries where they discover other forms of medicine simply because they set out on the journey to do so. There's a Yoruba proverb that says, if you do not know which road to take, anyone will do. So you can pick a road at any time and just make the choice. The building is not going to paint itself, so you just, you start putting paint on the building and start painting. But you got to start doing the journey some kind of way because things die. Don't let yourself grow stagnant, and learn how to do something different than you normally done to break out of the old algorithm and to create a new one. Brother, I would like to, if you don't mind, pay homage to Esu real quick, if you're
Yo,
still
never
kind of
had
with
to ask
us.
me to do anything, man. You got it. You got it, Baba.
I've asked you, if you that change from human languages into the language of the Orisha, Father asked you, we give thanks and praise to you, you who manifest the gateway so that we can receive all potential blessings. Father asked you, that you that assist in the transmission of tones, vibrations, and frequencies, give us the power to command the cosmic forces. It is you that bring balance to our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system. Father asked you, may you take away confusion. Whatever Father is to increase the power of effective speech. Father is to increase the power to correctly understand what's being spoken to us. Make it so that the necessary spiritual forces are here to receive this transmission. Father, it's you that open the doors of the portals of the other dimensions. You're the master of the third, fourth, and fifth dimension. Father, it's you open the gateways to even more financial blessings to come to each and every one of us. Those who are assisting and those who are here, may each and every one of us who are actually watching right now, may they receive financial blessings. May the door be open to them. Father, you have given us the power to transcend the illusion of the limitation of the space-time continuum. We give thanks and praise to you, Baba Eshu. Baratuayo, Omoyana wana mama gedi yawe. Baratuayo, Omoyana wana mama gedi yawe. Baratuayo, eke shodara. Omoyana wana mama gedi yawe. Ago a churio. Barala iki ago a churio. Iparako mochu para. Iparako vagomo yubara. O mode koniko iparako. Agomo yubara. Elegba eshulona. Ishonshona be. Ishonshona be yodara. Awanile bobona femi, shon abe, eshuo, elegbara ye, eshuo, elegbara ye, elegbara go for ibare, elegbara go. You give these to praise the Baba Eshu. May Yeshua open up the doors for each and every one of us to receive blessings. Give yourself permission to receive. Give yourself permission to explore the multiverse. Open up your mind to possibilities, not out of fear, but understanding, with a desire to make discovery. That is what you're here to do, make discovery. In the book of the Hermetica, Atum tells the host of the heavens that I will create a being who will appreciate my creation and will explore it. You're here to explore creation. Have fun with creation. Have fun with recreating yourself with the assistance of the ancestors and the Orisha. And do not forget to wake up and pay homage to your Ori. As soon as you get up, hold your Ori, hold your head, and ask for the things that you want for the rest of the day and set the precedence of the day. As soon as you come up out of the nun, you be Ra that rises from the nun of undifferentiated potential. That's what the blackness really is.
Ashe. Yeah, nah,
Joe.
this was everything I knew it was gonna be. I give thanks to you, Baba, man. I already knew what it was gonna be. I already knew what it was. Divine alignment. That's the only thing I can call it. Divine alignment. Like the whole I would say cohesiveness and like coagulation, like the whole all of us like meeting and crossing paths, man, like just being together is special. It's sacred. 10K mark today. Actually, no, we hit it a couple days ago. But anyway, I took the time to like write a thank you, thank you note or thank you post to all those who have played a role into Ashe being what it is, man. It's like, but I love it because everything that you've personified tonight and the first time you were on, but also for me personally, in all of our conversations, has been nothing short of what it's been tonight. And it's just real, it's divine, it's God. I remember mentioning the first time, like we're watching and we're hearing, we're listening to the presence of God. And I meant that. And I'm not saying that in any way, shape, form, or fashion that I want to be misconstrued or I'm assuming. No, I know what I said and I meant what I said and I'm standing on it 10 toes down. Like, because that's what it was. And, and I give thanks for the breath that speaks through me to be here to share that and to speak my truth. And I don't care what nobody thinks about me or what I do or what I say. But what I do care about is who sent me and what they sent me to do and who I'm doing it for, who I serve. That I care about that. And I always have and always will. And so if it's not about that, I ain't really worried about it. But I say all that to say that, man, this has been another phenomenal conversation, energy transfer, transmission, like reciprocity. It was amazing. And even in the comments I saw that there was like some disagreeable, situations, and some people were saying some things that some other people didn't agree with, or some people were saying some things that some people were like, nah, you ain't finna come in here with that, just to be real. But either way it goes, I'm not taking sides and I'm not trying to stir anything up, but what I am doing is I'm giving thanks to everybody who's been a part of this journey and everybody who's played a role and a part. And that goes for you, everybody from the very first guest to you today, to everybody who's liked, comment, shared, had any role, shape, form, or fashion in this journey. I truly give thanks, but me or guided me to be or guided me to do. And I'm doing that. And I give thanks for that. You know what I mean? Because I know there's a far superior force or far superior, energy or entity that's kind of like navigating this path and this journey, this flight, like this whole movement guided by a much higher power and a much higher force, because it doesn't happen this way unless there was divinity involved or infused. So with that, shout out to Baba Esu as well, man. Esu Odara, Esu Leroy. I mean, there's so many different paths of Esu, but I give thanks to all of them, and I give thanks to you. I give thanks to the ancestors. I give thanks to the Ejiogbe. I give thanks to the Rumale. I give thanks to the Netchers. I give thanks to the Loas. I give thanks to any and every creator or protector or healer, you know what I mean? Like presence or deity or entity that we've been exposed to, physical, spiritual, emotional, financial, every aspect of our life or existence. I give thanks to all those who, showed up and showed out tonight, man, including you, Baba. So I appreciate you, and I'm telling you, I can't wait to do it again. I look forward to it because it's been nothing short of amazing. So with that, man, I give you the floor. If you want to share anything with the people on the way out, with the tribe, I'm all for it, Baba.
Acknowledge something else too that I usually do, and that is acknowledge the ancestors. It is the ancestors whose shoulders we stand upon. It's always good to acknowledge the fact that we are continuing the work of our ancestors of long ago. When I call upon the ancestors, I call upon those ancient children of Eshu, those ancient children of Orumala, the Babalaos that go all the way back to the main Babalao. I call upon the Kari Hebs, who were the priests of Tahuti. I call upon all these ancestors because I know that they're working on our behalf, awakening our ancestral memory. I call upon and give respect to those ancestors. We summon the holographic genetic memory of our ancestors within our DNA. We call upon the presence of those spirits of long ago, the spirits of memory deactivated. It is those ancestors of our mothers that are present. It is the ancestors of our fathers that are present. We call upon the spirits of our grandmothers and grandfathers. And we call upon those ancestors who healers, doctors, and nurses who work as the spiritual soldiers, sailors, and veterans, liberators, warriors, and freedom fighters, laborers, technicians, farmers, and hunters. We give thanks and praise to all the ancestors. We ask that you continue to work with us, work through us, continue to guide us, make it so that each and every one of us come into wealth and prosperity. We give thanks and praise to all of our ancestors. We give thanks and praise to those whose shoulders we stand upon. We ask that the ancestors be with each and every one of you all. May you remember your divine origin so that you can foresee your divine destiny. We give thanks and praise to Rumala. We give thanks and praise to Odudawa. We give thanks and praise to Lodumari. We say Ashe, Ashe, Asho.
Yes, sir. Man, listen. So I'm gonna go ahead and drop a few of the comments real quick before we get out here, because like I said, the tribe been holding us down. Shout out to the real Comanche. I'd like to hear his personal on such entities. We're gonna get into that, family. Trust and believe. We're gonna definitely have Baba Khepra here as regular as possible. Based upon our schedules, we've already spoken about doing some things that we look forward to bringing to the tribe and to the channel in the very near future. So trust and believe we're working on that, and Spirit is working with us and through us collectively to make that happen for y'all, family. So we definitely appreciate all the love and support and love, just to let you know, like, the tribe is really feeling everything that you've been doing, with us and for us, man. So I give thanks again and shout out to each and every one of y'all, family, man. This has been another episode of the African Spirituality Experience. I am your host, Orisha Bemi. Shout out to Baba Khepra PTAH for coming down and doing this thing and burning it down again. I give thanks and look forward to it the next time we get it popping and making it do what it do. So with that, Baba, I appreciate you, man. I'll definitely be in touch, and I look forward to making this thing happen again, man, for sure.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate all the guests. Thank you. Each and every one of you guys are wonderful. Ashe.
Ashe. All right, Baba, I appreciate you, man. So I'll holler at you. And family, we appreciate y'all, tribe. We look forward to kind of continue to build. So we're going to make it happen, and we're going to make it do what it do. So with that, we appreciate y'all. Please like, share, subscribe. We'll see y'all next episode, family. We out. Peace. Odabo.
Odabo.
Ẹni tó gbàgbé ilé ṣàpò ìyàgbọ́ tẹ́ǹtì ẹni takísà ní tàtàn ò bá padà sílé anítìjàkọ ẹja lọ pé eégún mo sí ẹni gbẹ́rẹ́ ìpàkọ́ forsake not your ancestors and praise your